Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The name's Thaddeus Grimsby. Most folks just call me Thad, though there aren't many folks left who call me anything at all these days. I've been driving 18-wheelers across Texas for 23 years, and in all that time I've learned to trust my instincts. That tightness you get in your chest when something's off, the way your hands grip the wheel just a little harder when you sense danger ahead, those feelings have kept me alive more times than I care to count. But on that particular night in late October, driving through the empty stretch of Highway 287 between Amarillo and Fort Worth, my instincts failed me completely. I should start by saying that I'm not the kind of driver who scares easily. I've hauled everything from livestock to hazardous materials through ice storms, dust devils, and floods that turned highways into rivers. I've driven through neighborhoods where you don't stop at red lights after dark, and I've parked in truck stops where you sleep with one eye open and your doors locked tight. The road doesn't frighten me. People don't frighten me. At least, they didn't used to. It was a Wednesday night, or maybe it had already rolled over into Thursday morning. Time gets slippery when you're pushing through your second consecutive night run. I had picked up a load of industrial refrigeration units from a warehouse in Amarillo, heading southeast toward Fort Worth. The delivery wasn't due until Friday morning, but I like to stay ahead of schedule. Give yourself buffer time, and you won't have to explain to dispatch why you're late. That's always been my philosophy. The stretch of 287 between Childress and Vernon is about as desolate as Texas highways get. During the day, you might see the occasional ranch truck or farmer heading to town, but at night, it's just you, the road, and miles of darkness on either side. No streetlights, no buildings, just fence posts and mesquite trees that look like twisted hands reaching up from the earth. The only light comes from your headlights cutting through the dark and maybe the distant glow of a farmhouse sitting way back from the road. I had my CB radio on, scanning through channels more out of habit than necessity. Most truckers these days use their phones or company dispatch systems, but I'm old school. I like the crackle of the CB, the occasional voice cutting through the static to warn about speed traps or weather ahead. That night, though, the channels were dead quiet, not even the usual lonely trucker trying to stay awake with mindless chatter. The dashboard clock showed 2:47 a.m. when I first saw the headlights in my mirror. They appeared suddenly, like whoever was driving had just crested a hill behind me, though I knew the road had been flat for the last 10 miles. The lights were weaving slightly, not dramatically, just enough to catch my attention. My first thought was drunk driver. You see plenty of those on rural Texas highways, especially in the small hours when folks figure the cops are asleep. I eased off the accelerator slightly, letting my speed drop from 70 to about 65. Usually, when someone's coming up fast behind you, they'll pass and be on their way. But these headlights maintained their distance, matching my speed perfectly. They stayed about 3 truck lengths back, close enough that I could see them clearly in my mirrors, but not so close as to be immediately threatening. After a few minutes of this, I pressed the accelerator again, bringing my speed back up to 70, then 75. The headlights behind me sped up too, maintaining that exact same distance. When I slowed down to 60, they slowed down too. It was like they were attached to my trailer by an invisible rope. Now, I've been followed before. Sometimes it's kids playing stupid games. Sometimes it's someone who's nervous about driving at night and using your taillights as a guide. But this felt different. There was something deliberate about it, something calculated. The precision of their distance keeping set my teeth on edge. I grabbed my CB microphone. "Breaker, breaker, this is southbound on 287, about 15 miles north of Vernon. Anyone else out here tonight? Anyone copying this? Got someone riding my tail pretty steady here. More static. The headlights behind me suddenly flashed bright, then dim, then bright again. Not like they were signaling. More like the driver was playing with the switch. Then they swerved hard to the left, crossing into the oncoming lane. My first thought was they were finally going to pass, but instead of accelerating, they just drifted there, keeping pace with me in the wrong lane. There was no oncoming traffic. Hadn't seen another vehicle for at least 20 minutes, but watching those headlights cruise along in the opposite lane made my skin crawl. What kind of person does that? What were they trying to accomplish? After about 30 seconds, they swerved back behind me, resuming their position 3 truck lengths back. Then they did it again, this time drifting into the right shoulder, their passenger side tires kicking up dust and gravel that I could see in the red glow of my taillights. Back behind me. Then to the left lane again, then the shoulder. It was like they were tracing figure 8s behind my truck. I've dealt with aggressive drivers before, but this wasn't road rage. This was something else. Something planned. That's when I saw the second set of headlights ahead. At first, it looked like a vehicle had broken down on the shoulder about a half-mile up. I could see the hazard lights blinking in a steady rhythm. As I got closer, I could make out the shape of what looked like a sedan, maybe a Toyota or Honda, sitting at an odd angle with its front end partially in the roadway. The hood was up, and I could see someone standing beside it, waving their arms. My instinct was to move into the left lane to give them room, maybe even stop to help. That's what you do out here in the middle of nowhere. You help people who are stranded because you'd want someone to do the same for you. But the vehicle behind me had shifted my entire mental state. Every nerve in my body was firing, telling me something was wrong with this picture. As I approached the broken-down car, my headlights illuminated the person waving. It was a woman, looked to be in her 30s, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. Her hair was long and dark, whipping around in the wind. She was waving frantically, desperately, like someone whose life depended on getting help, but there was something about her movements that seemed rehearsed, too dramatic, like an actor overselling their role in a community theater production. The car behind me suddenly accelerated, pulling alongside my cab in the left lane. It was an older model pickup truck, dark-colored, maybe blue or black, hard to tell in the darkness. I couldn't see the driver clearly, just a shadow behind the wheel. They weren't trying to pass, they were boxing me in, keeping me from being able to swerve left around the woman and her car. Everything crystallized in that moment. This was a trap. I had maybe 3 seconds to make a decision. The woman was still waving, stepping further into the roadway. The pickup truck beside me was matching my speed exactly, preventing me from moving left. The shoulder on the right was narrow, bordered by a drainage ditch that would absolutely flip my truck if I tried to use it. I did the only thing I could think of. I laid on the horn and maintained my speed. The woman jumped back at the last second, and I mean the absolute last second. My passenger side mirror missed her by inches. As I passed, I got a clear look at her face in my headlights, and what I saw there wasn't fear or surprise. It was anger, pure, undiluted fury at the fact that I hadn't stopped. The pickup truck that had been pacing me suddenly hit the brakes, falling back rapidly. In my mirrors, I could see it pulling over near the supposedly broken-down sedan. 2 more figures emerged from the darkness near the car. They must have been crouched behind it, waiting. One of them was carrying something long, maybe a tire iron or a baseball bat. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the CB again. Anyone out there? Anyone at all? Just had an attempted, I don't even know what to call it, ambush, 3 or 4 people trying to get me to stop on 287 north of Vernon. This time, a voice crackled through. "That you, Thaddeus?" I didn't recognize the voice, but they knew my name. My actual name, not my handle. "Who is this?" I asked. "You should have stopped, Thaddeus. Would have been easier for everyone." The voice was calm, almost conversational. Male, with a slight Texas drawl, but not thick enough to place geographically. Could have been from anywhere in the state. "How do you know my name?" I demanded. "We know a lot of things, friend. Your route, your schedule, what you're hauling. Those refrigeration units are worth good money. But don't worry, we'll catch up with you soon enough. Maybe tomorrow night, maybe next week. We're patient people." I switched off the CB and pushed the accelerator to the floor. My truck could do 90 on a straight stretch if I pushed it, though the whole rig would shake like it was about to come apart. I didn't care. I needed to get to Vernon, needed to get around other people, needed to get off this damned highway. But they were right about one thing. They knew my route. See, the thing about hauling regular freight on regular schedules is that you become predictable. I ran this same route twice a month, had been for the past 3 years. Same pickup locations, same delivery points, same highways, often at the same times. Anyone who wanted to study my patterns would have had plenty of opportunity. I made it to Vernon without further incident, pulled into the first well-lit truck stop I could find, and parked right under the brightest lights available. There were a few other trucks there, drivers sleeping in their cabs, and the presence of other people made me feel marginally safer. I sat there for a good hour, engine running, doors locked, watching every vehicle that pulled in or out. Eventually, exhaustion started to win over adrenaline. I'd been driving for nearly 11 hours straight, and my eyes were starting to play tricks on me. Every shadow looked like someone creeping up on my truck. Every pair of headlights that passed on the highway seemed to slow down, like they were checking to see if I was there. I tried to call my dispatcher, but it was still too early. The office wouldn't open until 6. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? That someone had pretended to have car trouble. That wasn't illegal. That someone had followed me. Hard to prove. That they'd threatened me over the CB? I had no recording, no evidence. Around 4 a.m., I decided I needed to sleep, at least for a few hours. I climbed into my sleeper cab, made sure both doors were locked, and kept my tire iron within easy reach. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time I started to drift off, I'd hear something, a footstep, a voice, the sound of someone trying door handles, and I'd jolt awake, heart pounding. Most of the time it was nothing, just my imagination running wild. Most of the time. At 5:23 a.m., I heard a distinct tap on my passenger door. Not a knock, just a single tap, like someone touching it with one finger. I held my breath, gripped the tire iron, and waited. The tap came again, then nothing. I slowly lifted the curtain that separated the sleeper from the cab and peered out. There was a piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. I waited another full minute before climbing out, checking in every direction before I grabbed the paper. It was a receipt from a diner, the kind they give you when you pay your check. But this wasn't my receipt. Written on the back in neat feminine handwriting were the words, "Next time, you won't see us coming." The woman from the highway, it had to be. She'd been here, at this truck stop, close enough to touch my vehicle while I was inside it. The thought made my skin crawl. I looked around the parking lot, studying every vehicle, every shadow. A few trucks over, I spotted an older pickup that might have been the one from the highway, but I couldn't be sure. Dark-colored trucks all looked the same in pre-dawn light. Was someone sitting in it? I couldn't tell. The windows were tinted just enough to obscure the interior. I got back in my cab and started the engine. Forget sleep. Forget the schedule. I was getting out of there. I pulled out of the truck stop and headed south, constantly checking my mirrors for any sign of followers. The sun was just starting to lighten the eastern horizon, painting the sky a pale gray that made the world look washed out and unreal. 20 miles down the road, I started to relax slightly. No one was following me. The highway was beginning to see normal morning traffic. Farmers heading to town, early commuters, school buses beginning their routes. The normal world was waking up, and the events of the night were starting to feel like they'd happened in some other reality. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, just a whiff of something chemical and wrong. I checked my gauges, everything normal. No warning lights, no temperature spikes, but the smell was getting stronger. It was coming from my cargo area. I pulled over at the next wide spot in the road and walked back to check my trailer. The locks were still in place, the seals intact. But when I put my ear to the door, I could hear something. A soft, hissing sound, like air escaping from a tire, but steadier. I broke the seal and opened the doors. 3 of the refrigeration units had been damaged. Someone had driven what looked like a screwdriver or an ice pick into the coolant lines. The chemical smell was refrigerant leaking out. Thousands of dollars worth of damage that would make the units completely worthless. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. Spray painted on the inside wall of my trailer, in the same angry red that reminded me of fresh blood, were the words, "You should have stopped." They'd done this at the truck stop. While I'd sat there, terrified and paranoid, gripping my tire iron and jumping at shadows, someone had calmly walked up to my trailer, picked the lock without me hearing, vandalized my cargo, and locked it back up. They'd taken their time, been methodical about it. This wasn't random destruction. This was a message. I called my dispatcher then, waking him up at home. Told him everything. He listened in silence, then said he'd send another driver to meet me and transfer the undamaged units. Told me to file a police report, get the trailer documented for insurance, then deadhead back to the yard. My run was over. But here's the thing that still bothers me, that keeps me up at night even now, months later. They could have robbed me. Those refrigeration units were worth serious money, and they'd clearly had the opportunity. They could have hurt me. I'd been completely vulnerable in that sleeper cab. They could have done any number of things, but they didn't. They just wanted me to know that they could. I filed the police report in Vernon. The officer, a tired-looking man in his 50s, took my statement with the kind of detached professionalism that suggested he'd heard stories like this before. He said they'd had reports of similar incidents, trucks being followed, fake breakdowns used as bait, but no one had been hurt yet. Yet. He emphasized that word like it was just a matter of time. These people, he said, they're not exactly amateurs. They scout their targets, learn their routines, figure out who's worth hitting and who's not. The fact that they let you go means one of two things. Either you spooked them somehow, or they were just practicing. Practicing? I asked. Testing their method. Seeing how truckers react. Learning what works and what doesn't. He closed his notebook. You were smart not to stop. We found a driver last month about 60 miles from here. He'd stopped for what he thought was an accident. They beat him pretty bad, took his truck, his cargo, everything. He's lucky to be alive. The guilt of survival settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. I'd gotten away, but how many others wouldn't be so lucky? He gave me his card, told me to call if I remembered any other details or if anything else happened. But we both knew the truth. There wasn't much the police could do. The highway was too long, too empty, and these people were too smart to leave evidence that would hold up in court. The other driver arrived around noon. Tom had sent one of our most experienced guys, a grizzled veteran named Earl, who'd been driving since before I was born. He took one look at the damage in my trailer and whistled low. Damn, Thad, you really pissed somebody off. We transferred the undamaged units in silence. Earl didn't ask questions, didn't offer theories. He'd been around long enough to know that sometimes the less you knew, the better off you were. When we finished, he clapped me on the shoulder. "Get yourself home," he said. "And maybe think about finding a different line of work." The drive back to the yard in Fort Worth was the longest of my life. Every vehicle that followed me for more than a mile set my nerves on edge. Every broken-down car on the shoulder made me grip the wheel tighter. I took a different route than usual, adding an extra hour to the journey, constantly checking to make sure no one was following me. When I finally pulled into the yard, my dispatcher was waiting. Tom Hardwick, a heavy-set man with 30 years in the business, half of them behind a desk. He took one look at me and shook his head. "Jesus, Thad, you look like hell." I probably did. I hadn't slept in over 30 hours. My hands were still shaking slightly, and I could feel the exhaustion in every bone of my body. But it wasn't the physical tiredness that was getting to me. It was the knowledge that they were still out there. "Come on," Tom said. "Let's get you sorted out." We went into his office, and I told him the whole story again, in more detail this time. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I'm pulling you off that route," he said, "effective immediately." Part of me was relieved, but another part, the part that had been driving trucks for over 2 decades, bristled at the idea of being scared off my regular run. "Tom, I can handle—" "No," he cut me off. "This isn't about what you can handle. I've got 3 other drivers who've reported similar incidents in the last 2 months. Not as dramatic as yours, but the same general idea. Vehicles following them, suspicious breakdowns, weird stuff at truck stops. Something's going on out there, and I'm not risking my drivers." He pulled out a map and spread it on his desk. There were several red X marks along Highway 287 and a few other rural routes. "These are all the incidents we know about," he said. "There's a pattern here. They're targeting specific routes, specific types of cargo, refrigeration units, electronics, pharmaceutical shipments, stuff that's valuable but not too heavily monitored." Looking at that map, seeing all those marks, made it real in a way that even my experience hadn't. This wasn't random. This wasn't just bad luck. There was an actual organization out there studying us, hunting us. "What are we going to do about it?" I asked. Tom shrugged. "What can we do? We've reported everything to the police, the highway patrol, even the FBI since it crosses state lines. But until they actually hurt someone or steal something significant, it's not a high priority. We're just truckers, Thad. Nobody cares about us until freight stops moving." He was right, of course. We were invisible until we weren't doing our jobs. Then suddenly, everyone would wonder why their stores were empty, why their businesses couldn't get supplies. But until then, we were just background noise on the highways. "Take a few days off," Tom said. "Get some rest. When you come back, I've got some local runs for you. Day shifts only, well-traveled routes, nothing rural, nothing isolated." I wanted to argue, to insist that I wasn't going to let some criminals dictate where and when I could drive. But the truth was, I was relieved. The thought of driving that stretch of 287 again, especially at night, made my stomach clench. I went home to my small apartment in Fort Worth, double-locked the door, and collapsed into bed. But sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's face in my headlights, twisted with rage. I heard that voice on the CB, calm and threatening. I felt that single tap on my truck door. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, Thaddeus." It was the same voice from the CB. My blood turned to ice water. "How did you get this number?" I managed to ask. "Like I said, we know things. Just calling to make sure you're okay. That was quite a scare you had last night." What do you want? There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. Nothing from you anymore. You're off that route, right? Smart move. But there are other drivers, Thaddeus. Younger ones. Eager ones. They don't know what we know, do they? Leave them alone, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's not how this works. This is business. Nothing personal. You were smart. You survived. Not everyone will be so lucky. The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness of my apartment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. They knew where I lived. They knew my phone number. They knew everything about me, and there was nothing I could do about it. The next morning, I called Tom and told him about the phone call. He was quiet for a long moment, then said he'd notify the police and put out a warning to all our drivers. But we both knew it wouldn't be enough. These people were professionals. They'd studied us, learned our patterns, identified our weaknesses, and they were still out there, waiting for the next victim. 3 weeks passed before I heard about the next incident. I'd been running local deliveries, staying within a 100-mile radius of Fort Worth, never driving past sunset. It was humbling, going from long-haul runs to what amounted to glorified delivery service. But at least I could sleep in my own bed every night without wondering if someone was waiting for me in the darkness. Tom called me into his office on a Tuesday morning. His face was grim, more so than usual. "Sit down, Thad," he said. "We need to talk." I took the chair across from his desk, noting the folder he had open in front of him. Police reports, from the look of them. "There's been another one," he said without preamble. "Last night, Highway 287, about 5 miles from where they tried to get you." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Independent operator. Guy named Cordelia Thorne's husband. She's the one who found him." "Found him?" The way Tom said it made my blood run cold. "He's alive, but barely. They worked him over pretty good. Broke his jaw, 3 ribs, ruptured his spleen. He's in intensive care at Harris Methodist." I sat back in my chair, feeling sick. Same people? Has to be. Same setup. Fake breakdown, woman flagging him down. Only this time, when he stopped, they didn't just rob him. They made an example of him. Tom slid a photograph across the desk. It was taken inside a trailer and spray-painted on the wall in that same angry red where the words, "Thaddeus Grimsby should have warned you." My name. They'd used my name. "The police want to talk to you," Tom said. "And Thad, there's something else." He pulled out another paper, a printout from some kind of forum or message board. "One of our other drivers found this online. It's a truckers' forum, the kind where guys share route information and warnings. Look at this post." The post was dated 3 days after my incident. The username was Luella B979, and the message was simple. "Looking for Thaddeus Grimsby. He knows what he did. If anyone knows his current routes or how to reach him, there's money in it for you. Serious inquiries only." Luella. The woman from the highway had a name now. "There are dozens of replies," Tom continued. "People asking what you did, offering information. Someone even posted a picture of your truck from a truck stop in Weatherford." "Jesus," I muttered. "They're hunting me." "Not just you. Look at this." He showed me another printout. This one from a different forum. The poster was J. Creed 88, and the message was longer. "Attention all drivers on Texas rural roads. We're looking for specific cargo and specific drivers. Those who cooperate will be compensated. Those who don't, well, Thaddeus Grimsby thought he was smart. Ask around about what happened to the last driver who didn't stop. This is business, not personal. Make the smart choice. Josiah Creed, another name to go with the voices and shadows." The FBI is involved now, Tom said. This is organized crime, interstate commerce, the whole deal. They want to put you in protective custody. Protective custody? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. For how long? Forever? These people know where I live, where I work, what I drive. What am I supposed to do, go into witness protection because I didn't stop for a fake breakdown? It might not be a bad idea, Tom said quietly. Thad, these people are escalating. First, they just tried to rob you. Then they vandalized your cargo. Now they're putting people in the hospital and using your name to do it. What do you think comes next? I knew what came next. We both did. That afternoon, I met with 2 FBI agents at a small office building downtown. Agent Martinez was young, probably fresh out of Quantico, with the kind of eager intensity that hadn't been worn down by years of bureaucracy yet. Agent Holbrook was older, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Grimsby, Holbrook began, we've been tracking this group for about 8 months now. What you've told us, combined with other incidents, has given us a much clearer picture of their operation. He spread out a map similar to the one Tom had shown me, but with many more marks. Red X's for confirmed incidents, blue circles for suspected ones, yellow triangles for near misses. We believe we're dealing with a crew of at least 6 individuals, possibly more. They're well organized, well informed, and getting bolder with each successful score. Successful? I asked. But they didn't get anything from me. You're the exception, Martinez said. In the past 6 months, they've stolen over $2 million worth of cargo, electronics, pharmaceuticals, industrial equipment. They seem to have inside information about what trucks are carrying what. Inside information, I repeated. You mean someone at the trucking companies? Possibly, or someone with access to shipping manifests, delivery schedules. These aren't random hits. They know exactly which trucks to target and when. Holbrook pulled out a tablet and showed me a series of photographs. Security camera footage from various truck stops, all grainy and unclear, but showing the same woman at different locations. Is this her? He asked. The woman from the highway? I studied the images. The quality was poor, but the build was right, the hair, the way she moved. Could be, I said. Hard to say for sure. Her name is Luella Blackwood, Holbrook said. At least, that's one of her names. She's got a record: fraud, theft, assault. Did 2 years in Gatesville for her part in a robbery scheme. Got out 3 years ago. He swiped to another photo, this one a mugshot. It was definitely her. Those same dark eyes that had blazed with anger when I didn't stop. And this, Holbrook continued, swiping again, is Josiah Creed. We think he's the leader, or at least the organizer. The man in the photo was ordinary looking. Early 40s, graying beard, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after seeing it. But there was something in his eyes, a calculating coldness that made me uncomfortable even in a photograph. Ex-military, Martinez added. Dishonorable discharge after he was caught stealing supplies and selling them on the black market. He's been running schemes ever since. So, why haven't you arrested them? I asked. The 2 agents exchanged glances. We need more evidence, Holbrook said carefully. What we have is mostly circumstantial. We need to catch them in the act, or get someone on the inside to flip. You want me to be bait, I said. It wasn't a question. We want you to be safe, Martinez said quickly. But if you were willing to help us, help you how? Drive around until they try to kill me? We'd have surveillance on you the entire time, Holbrook said. Multiple units, air support if necessary. The moment they make a move, we'd be there. I thought about the driver in the hospital, his jaw wired shut, machines keeping him breathing. I thought about my name painted in that trailer, a message, and a threat. I need to think about it, I said. They gave me their cards, told me to call them any time, day or night. Martinez handed me a panic button, a small device that looked like a key fob. Just in case, he said. Press this, and we'll know exactly where you are. I went home and sat in my apartment, staring at that panic button. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was made of lead instead of plastic. The weight of the decision, maybe. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello, Thaddeus. It was her this time, Luella Blackwood. Her voice was different from what I'd expected. Educated, refined even. Not the rough drawl I'd imagined. I know who you are, I said. Luella Blackwood. The FBI knows who you are, too. She laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. Oh, Thaddeus. You think that matters? You think we care about the FBI? They've been tracking us for months, and what have they accomplished? Nothing. What do you want? I wanted to apologize, she said, and for a moment, I thought I'd misheard. About that driver, the one in the hospital. That wasn't supposed to happen. Josiah got carried away. We're not usually so crude. You're apologizing for putting a man in the ICU? I'm explaining that it wasn't personal. Just like with you. This is business, Thaddeus, supply and demand. We supply what people demand, and right now, there's a high demand for what you truckers are carrying. You're thieves, I said. Criminals. We're entrepreneurs, she corrected. And we're very good at what we do. But you've complicated things. You've drawn attention we don't want. The FBI is one thing, but now, other drivers are getting paranoid, changing routes, adding security. You're costing us money. Good. No, not good. Not good for anyone. Because when we lose money, we have to make it up somewhere else. And that means taking bigger risks, being less gentle. The threat was clear. So, what do you want from me? I asked. I want you to go back to your regular route. Same schedule, same cargo, business as usual. You want me to be a sitting duck. I want you to be smart. You do your job, we'll do ours, and everyone goes home safe. Keep hiding, keep running, and more people are going to get hurt. People who don't have FBI agents watching their backs. If I go back to my route, you'll try to rob me. No, she said. You've made your point. You're too high profile now, too risky. We'll leave you alone. Professional courtesy. But we need things to go back to normal. We need the other drivers to stop being so paranoid. I didn't believe her for a second, but I played along. And if I don't? Then that driver in the hospital, he'll have company, lots of company. And every one of them will know that Thaddeus Grimsby could have prevented it. The line went dead. I called Agent Holbrook immediately, told him about the conversation. Within an hour, he and Martinez were at my apartment. This is perfect, Martinez said, excited. She's made contact, made threats. We can trace the call, get warrants. The call was from a burner phone. Holbrook interrupted, looking at his phone. Already dead, but this is still good. She's getting desperate, making mistakes. She didn't sound desperate, I said. She sounded very much in control. That's what she wants you to think. But the fact that she called you directly, that's panic. She's trying to regain control of the situation. So, what do? I asked. We give her what she wants, Holbrook said. You go back to your regular route, but this time we'll be ready. They spent the next hour outlining their plan. Hidden cameras in my truck, GPS trackers, unmarked cars following at a distance. They'd even have a helicopter on standby. It sounded thorough, professional. It also sounded like using me as bait, despite their earlier denials. What about the other drivers? I asked. She threatened them. We're notifying all the major trucking companies. Martinez said. Increased security, route changes, the works. But honestly, Mr. Grimsby, the best way to protect everyone is to catch these people. I agreed to think about it, and they left. But I'd already made up my mind. I couldn't let other drivers get hurt because of me, and I wanted this to end, one way or another. The next morning, I told Tom I wanted my old route back. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Absolutely not. Are you insane? I explained the FBI's plan, Luella's threat, everything. He listened, shaking his head the entire time. This is a bad idea, Thad. These people are dangerous. They're dangerous whether I'm on that route or not. At least this way we might catch them. He finally agreed, reluctantly. We scheduled a run for that Friday night. Same cargo, same route, same everything. Like nothing had ever happened. The FBI spent Thursday installing their equipment in my truck. Tiny cameras hidden everywhere. Microphones that could pick up a whisper from 50 feet away. They showed me the panic button again, made me practice using it. The moment anything seems off, Holbrook emphasized, you hit this. Don't wait, don't second guess. Hit it, and we'll be there in minutes. Friday evening came too quickly. I did my pre-trip inspection, trying to act normal even though I could feel eyes on me. The FBI agents were out there somewhere, watching, waiting. The weight of the panic button in my pocket was both reassuring and terrifying. I pulled out of the yard at 8 p.m., heading northwest toward Amarillo. The familiar rhythm of the road should have been comforting, but every mile felt like driving deeper into a trap. The sun set behind me, painting the sky blood red before fading to black. The first 100 miles were uneventful. Normal traffic, normal radio chatter. I started to think maybe Luella had been telling the truth, that they'd leave me alone. Professional courtesy, she'd called it. Then, around 11 p.m., I saw the headlights. Same pattern as before, appearing suddenly, maintaining perfect distance. But this time I was ready. I activated the camera system with a switch hidden under my dash, alerting the FBI that something was happening. I see them, I said aloud, knowing the microphones would pick it up. Single vehicle, about 3 lengths back. The headlights followed me for 10 miles, matching every speed change, every lane shift. Then, just like before, they started the weaving pattern. Left lane, right shoulder, back to center. A signal to others up ahead, maybe, or just psychological warfare. My phone buzzed. Text message from Holbrook. We see them. Maintain speed, wait for our signal. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one driving into an ambush. 20 miles later, I saw the broken-down vehicle. Same spot as before, or close to it. But this time, there were 2 cars on the shoulder, hoods up, hazard lights flashing, and multiple people, I counted at least 4, standing around them. One of them stepped into the road, waving frantically. Not Luella this time. A man, tall and thin, wearing what looked like a mechanic's coveralls. As I got closer, I recognized him from the FBI photos. Josiah Creed himself. My phone buzzed again. Do not stop, drive through. But something was wrong. There were more vehicles ahead, pulled off on both shoulders, creating a narrowing funnel. And in my mirrors, I could see more headlights approaching fast from behind, not just the one that had been following me. 3, maybe 4 vehicles. This wasn't the same trap as before. This was something bigger. I grabbed the CB microphone. Breaker. This is Thaddeus Grimsby on 287. I need help here. Multiple vehicles, possible. The windshield exploded. Not from a bullet, from a brick or a rock. Something heavy thrown from the overpass we were passing under. Safety glass showered everywhere, and cold wind roared into the cab. I fought to keep control, nearly jackknifing as I swerved. More objects rained down. Rocks, bottles, pieces of metal. My hood took a massive dent, and something punctured the passenger door with a shriek of tearing metal. They weren't trying to stop me. They were trying to kill me. I floored it, barreling through the funnel of vehicles. Josiah Creed dove out of the way at the last second, and I clipped one of the abandoned cars, sending it spinning. In my mirrors, I could see chaos, vehicles swerving, people running, but they weren't giving up. The pickup truck behind me accelerated, ramming into my trailer. The whole rig lurched forward. They hit me again, harder this time, trying to make me lose control. More vehicles were joining the pursuit. I counted 5 sets of headlights now. Where was the FBI? Where was my backup? I hit the panic button so hard I thought I might break it. Then I grabbed the CB again. Mayday! Mayday! This is Thaddeus Grimsby under attack on Highway 287, mile marker 142. Multiple vehicles in pursuit. Where the hell is another ram from behind? This one from the side, trying to spin me out. I felt the trailer start to slide and had to fight every instinct to avoid jackknifing. The speedometer hit 85, 90. The whole rig was shaking, threatening to come apart. Then I saw them, flashing lights ahead. Police cars, FBI vehicles, even that promised helicopter swooping in low with a spotlight. The cavalry had arrived. The vehicles behind me immediately scattered. Some took off road exits, others simply stopped and tried to turn around. But it was too late for them. The FBI had the whole area surrounded. I managed to bring the truck to a stop on the shoulder, hands shaking so badly I could barely set the brakes. Blood was running down my face from where the glass had cut me. My ears were ringing. But I was alive. Agent Holbrook was the first to reach me, gun drawn, eyes scanning for threats. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," I lied. "Did you get them?" "We got some of them," he said. "Come on, let's get you to an ambulance." As the EMTs cleaned my cuts and checked me for concussion, I watched the FBI and state police round up suspects. They'd caught 3 vehicles, 8 people total, but not the main pickup that had been ramming me. And when they showed me the suspects, neither Luella Blackwood nor Josiah Creed were among them. "They got away," I said. It wasn't a question. "The leaders usually do," Holbrook admitted. "But this is still a win. We've got their crew, their vehicles. We'll flip someone, get them to talk." But I knew better. Luella and Josiah were too smart to get caught in their own trap. They'd probably been watching from a safe distance, ready to disappear the moment things went wrong. One of the captured suspects, a young woman barely out of her teens, was crying as they put her in the patrol car. She looked at me through the window, mascara running down her face, and mouthed something. It looked like, "I'm sorry." I thought about Cordelia Thorne, finding her husband beaten half to death. I thought about all the drivers who'd been robbed, traumatized, hurt. And I thought about how this young woman had made her choice, just like I'd made mine that night when I didn't stop. The FBI kept me at the scene for 3 hours, taking statements, documenting evidence. They found weapons in the captured vehicles, tire irons, baseball bats, even a few guns. They also found lists of trucking companies, driver names, route information. It was an entire criminal database. My name was circled in red on every list. "You're going to need protection," Holbrook said. "Real protection this time. Safe house, new identity, the works. Luella and Josiah are still out there, and now they know you helped us." "No," I said. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. Mr. Grimsby, I'm retiring," I said. 23 years is enough. I'm selling my truck, getting out of the business. Let them come after a nobody instead of a trucker. See how far that gets them. It wasn't the heroic stand they probably wanted, but it was the smart play. Without a truck, without cargo, Without regular routes, I was useless to them. Just another face in the crowd. Tom understood when I told him. He'd already started the paperwork for my exit by the time I got back to the yard. We shook hands, and he told me I'd made the right choice. "Stay safe, Thad," he said, "and stay gone." I sold the truck to a dealer in Oklahoma, making sure to go through intermediaries so my name wouldn't be on any paperwork. I moved out of my apartment in the middle of the night, leaving no forwarding address. I changed my phone number, closed my social media accounts, became a ghost. But before I disappeared completely, I did one last thing. I went to visit the driver in the hospital, the one whose beating had carried my name. He was awake, though his jaw was still wired shut. His wife, Cordelia Thorne, was there, holding his hand. She looked at me with eyes that held no anger, just exhaustion. "I'm sorry," I said. "This is my fault." The driver, I learned his name was Paul, shook his head slightly. He wrote something on a notepad and showed it to me. "Not your fault. My choice to stop." "They used my name," I insisted. "They hurt you because of me." He wrote again. "They hurt me because they're criminals. You survived. That matters." Cordelia spoke then, her voice soft but firm. "The FBI agent told us what you did, how you helped catch some of them. Thank you for that." I wanted to tell her it wasn't enough, that the real criminals were still free. But what good would that do? They needed hope, not more fear. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed. New number, but I knew who it was before I answered. "Running away, Thaddeus?" Luella's voice was amused. "That's not like you." "It's over," I said. "I'm out. You won. Is that what you want to hear?" "What I want is irrelevant now. You've made things very complicated for us. 8 of our people in custody, our entire operation exposed. That's not something we can just forget. I don't care anymore. Come after me if you want. I've got nothing you need." There was a long pause. Then she said something that chilled me more than any threat could have. "Everyone has something to lose, Thaddeus. Everyone has someone they care about. You might think you're alone, but we know better. That ex-wife in Houston, those 2 kids in Austin, your brother in Lubbock. Amazing how much information is just floating around out there, waiting for someone to collect it." My blood froze. I'd been divorced for 10 years, barely spoke to my ex-wife. My kids were adults, living their own lives. My brother and I hadn't talked in 5 years, but she knew about all of them. "You stay away from them," I said, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. "That's entirely up to you," she said. "Disappear. Stay disappeared, and never cooperate with law enforcement again. Do that, and your family stays safe. Break that agreement, and well, we've already shown what we're capable of. The FBI couldn't protect you. What makes you think they can protect everyone you've ever cared about?" She was right, and we both knew it. "Fine," I said. "You have my word." "Good. Goodbye, Thaddeus. Let's hope we never have to speak again." The line went dead. I threw the phone in a dumpster and walked away. That was 6 months ago. 6 months. That's how long I managed to stay hidden. 6 months of looking over my shoulder, jumping at unexpected knocks, screening every call through 3 different apps before answering. 6 months of working construction jobs under the table, paying cash for everything, living in a rotation of cheap motels where nobody asked questions if your money was green. I'd grown a beard, gained some weight, started wearing glasses I didn't need, became someone else, someone forgettable. Someone who'd never driven a truck, never heard of Highway 287, never knew the names Luella Blackwood or Josiah Creed. But trauma has a way of finding you, no matter how deep you bury yourself. It was a Thursday night in April. I was staying at a run-down motel outside Abilene, far from any of my old roots. The kind of place where the carpet stuck to your shoes and the air conditioner sounded like a dying animal. But it was safe, or as safe as anywhere could be for someone like me. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift laying foundation for a new strip mall. My back ached, my hands were raw despite the work gloves, and all I wanted was a shower and sleep. But when I pushed open the door to my room, I knew immediately something was wrong. The air was different, colder, and there was a smell. Cigarette smoke, fresh, though I hadn't smoked in months. She was sitting in the chair by the window, silhouetted against the yellowed curtains. Luella Blackwood. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it blonde, but I knew her instantly. You don't forget the face of someone who's tried to destroy your life. "Hello, Thaddeus," she said, taking a long drag from her cigarette. "You're a hard man to find." I stayed in the doorway, calculating distances. The parking lot was 20 feet behind me. My truck, not a semi anymore, just an old Ford pickup I'd bought with cash, was parked right outside. But she was too calm, too relaxed. This was planned. "How?" I asked. "Your brother," she said simply. "We've been watching him. You called him 2 weeks ago from a burner phone, checked in on him." The call lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds, long enough for our tech guy to triangulate the general area. After that, it was just legwork, checking motels, construction sites. You truckers always end up in construction when you quit. Something about working with your hands. I'd been so careful, but not careful enough. One moment of weakness, of needing to hear a familiar voice, and it had all unraveled. "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew this wouldn't end well. "Josiah is in prison," she said. "Thanks to you and your FBI friends, 15 to 20 years. The others got 5 to 10. You destroyed everything we built. You destroyed it yourself when you started hurting people." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Hurting people? We were surviving. Do you know what it's like to have nothing? To watch everything get taken from you piece by piece until crime is the only option left? There are always options." Spoken like someone who's never been truly desperate. She stood up, and I tensed, but she just walked to the window, peering through the curtains. "I didn't come here to debate philosophy with you, Thaddeus. I came to make you an offer. I'm listening." The FBI froze all our assets, but we had money hidden. Enough to start over, somewhere else, under new names. I could disappear, just like you tried to. But I need something from you first. "What?" "There's a witness. One of our crew who flipped. Gave the FBI everything in exchange for immunity. They're keeping him in protective custody until Josiah's trial next month. I need to know where." I almost laughed. "You think I have that information?" "No, but you still have contacts. That dispatcher of yours, Tom, the FBI agents who worked your case, you could find out." "Even if I could, why would I?" She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something besides cold calculation in her eyes. Desperation. Fear. "Because if you don't, I'll burn everything down. Your family, your friends, everyone you've ever cared about. I've got nothing left to lose, Thaddeus. Prison or death, it doesn't matter anymore. But I'll take as many people with me as I can. You're threatening to kill innocent people if I don't help you kill a witness? I'm not going to kill him. I just need to know where he is. What happens after that isn't your concern." We stood there, staring at each other across the dirty motel room. Two people whose lives had been derailed by a single moment on a dark highway. In another universe, we'd never met. I'd have stopped for her fake breakdown, been robbed, filed an insurance claim, and moved on. She'd have gotten her score and disappeared into the night. Simple, clean. But I hadn't stopped, and now here we were. "I can't," I said finally. "I won't." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "Then we have a problem." She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. It was a live video feed. My ex-wife's house in Houston. I could see her through the kitchen window washing dishes, alone, vulnerable. "I have people watching her," Luella said. "Your kids too, your brother. One word from me and bad things happen. You understand?" My mouth went dry. "You're bluffing." She made a call, putting it on speaker. A man's voice answered. "Yeah? Show him," she said. 30 seconds later, the feed showed a figure approaching my ex-wife's back door. Dressed in black, face obscured. They knocked, and I watched her dry her hands and walk toward the door. "Stop," I said. "Please." Luella spoke into the phone. "Stand down, for now." The figure retreated, disappearing into the darkness. My ex-wife looked confused, peering out into her backyard before closing and locking the door. 48 hours, Luella said. "Find out where the witness is, or next time my people won't stop at knocking." She walked past me toward the door, pausing just long enough to whisper, "And don't even think about calling the FBI. We're monitoring everything. One suspicious call, one police car showing up somewhere it shouldn't, and it's over." Then she was gone, leaving only the smell of cigarette smoke and the weight of an impossible choice. I sat on the bed, head in my hands, trying to think. She was right about one thing. I couldn't call the FBI. Even if they could protect my family, which was doubtful, any contact would trigger Luella's people. But I also couldn't give up a witness. That would make me an accessory to murder, because despite what she said, I knew exactly what would happen if she found him. I needed help, but from someone outside the official channels. Tom Hardwick, my old dispatcher. He'd know things, have contacts, but he wasn't law enforcement. Maybe I could reach out without triggering any alarms. I drove 3 hours to Dallas, switching vehicles twice, before finding a payphone that actually worked. They're almost extinct now, but truckers know where to find them. Old truck stops that haven't been updated since the 90s. Tom answered on the third ring. "Hello? Tom, it's Thad. Don't say my name, just listen." Silence then. "I'm listening." I explained everything as quickly as I could. Luella's visit, her threats, the impossible situation. Tom listened without interrupting. "Jesus," he finally said. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. That's why I'm calling. I don't know what I need. Information, options, something." "The witness," Tom said slowly. "I might know who it is. Guy named Garrett, early 20s. He was the weak link, kid who got in over his head. Word is he's scared out of his mind. Been begging the FBI to relocate him to another country. Do you know where they're keeping him?" "No, and I don't want to know." "Thad, you can't be thinking about—" "I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just trying to find a way out of this that doesn't end with people dead." Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "There might be another way. What if the witness wasn't where Luella thought he was? What if you gave her bad information? She'd know eventually, and then my family, not if she was arrested first. Look, I still have contacts at the FBI. What if we set up a sting? You give her a fake location, FBI is waiting, they grab her?" It was risky, but it was better than any plan I had. "Make the call," I said. "But Tom, be careful. She's got people everywhere." I gave him the motel's phone number and hung up. Then I drove back, taking an even more circuitous route. If Luella had people watching me, I wanted them dizzy from trying to follow. Tom called back 6 hours later. It's set. Agent Holbrook remembers you. He's interested. But Thad, they want something in return. What? Your testimony. Full cooperation. Everything you know about Luella and her operation. That would put an even bigger target on my back. Holbrook says they can protect you. Real witness protection this time. New identity, new life, completely off the grid. I thought about my current life. Motel rooms, cash jobs, constant fear. Was witness protection really any worse? Fine, I said. What's the plan? The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would tell Luella that the witness was being held at a specific safe house in Fort Worth. The FBI would evacuate the real residence and fill it with agents. When Luella or her people showed up, they'd be arrested. Clean, simple, effective. Except nothing about Luella Blackwood was ever simple. I met her the next night at an abandoned truck stop off I-20. She'd chosen the location, of course. Isolated, multiple exit routes, impossible to surround without being noticed. She wasn't alone this time. A man sat in the passenger seat of her car, face obscured by darkness. He didn't speak, didn't move, but I could feel him watching me. "Well," she said, leaning against her car. I handed her a piece of paper with an address. Safe house in Fort Worth. Residential neighborhood, minimal security. They're moving him in 3 days, right before the trial. She studied the paper, then me. "How did you get this? Does it matter?" "Everything matters." She pulled out her phone, typed something. "If you're lying to me, Thaddeus, if this is some kind of setup, it's not." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded to the man in the car. He got out, and I finally saw his face. Young, maybe mid-20s, with dead eyes and a scar across his throat. "This is Marcus," she said. "He'll be staying close to you until we verify your information. Think of him as insurance. That wasn't part of the deal. The deal is whatever I say it is." She got in her car, started the engine. 3 days, Thaddeus. If you've told the truth, you'll never see us again. If you've lied, well, Marcus will handle that." She drove off, leaving me alone with her silent enforcer. He followed me back to the motel, took the room next door. I could hear him through the thin walls, pacing, occasionally talking on the phone in a language I didn't recognize. For 2 days, we existed in this strange limbo. Marcus shadowing me everywhere, never speaking, just watching. I went to work at the construction site, and he sat in his car in the parking lot. I went to buy food, and he followed 2 aisles behind. It was psychological torture, designed to break me down, make me reveal any deception. On the morning of the 3rd day, my phone rang. Unknown number. "It's Tom. They're in position. Is the backup guy still with you?" I glanced at the wall, hearing Marcus moving around. "Yeah. Holbrook says to act normal. Go to work, follow your routine. They'll handle everything else." But I couldn't focus at work. Every sound made me jump. Every phone call could be news that the plan had failed, that my family was paying the price. By lunch, I was so wound up that the foreman sent me home thinking I was sick. Marcus followed me back to the motel. We pulled into the parking lot at the same time, and for once, he spoke. "Something's wrong," he said. His voice was raspy, damaged, like his scarred throat suggested. "You're nervous." "I'm always nervous when killers are following me." He smiled, an expression that didn't reach his eyes. "You should be more specific. There are several of us around." Before I could respond, his phone rang. He answered in that foreign language, listened, then hung up. His entire demeanor changed. The fake casualness disappeared. replaced by cold professionalism. "Get in your room," he ordered. "Lock the door. Don't come out." "What's happening?" "Just do it." I did as he said, but immediately went to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. Marcus was standing by his car, gun drawn, scanning the parking lot. Then I saw them. Black SUVs rolling in from both entrances, boxing us in. The FBI. But too early. The plan was to wait until Luella showed up at the safe house. Why were they here? Marcus saw them too. He turned toward my room, raised his gun, and I dove for the floor just as the window exploded. The bullet punched through the wall inches from where I'd been standing. "Federal agents, drop your weapon!" Marcus didn't drop it. He opened fire on the SUVs, and suddenly the parking lot became a war zone. Automatic weapons fire, shattering glass, screaming. I crawled to the bathroom, huddled in the tub, hands over my ears. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, then silence. "Thaddeus Grimsby!" Someone with a megaphone. "Come out with your hands visible." I emerged slowly, hands high, stepping over the destroyed remnants of my door. Marcus was on the ground, not moving, blood pooling beneath him. Federal agents were everywhere, weapons drawn. Agent Holbrook approached, looking grim. "Are you hurt?" "No. What happened? This wasn't the plan." "Luella knew it was a trap. We're not sure how, but she sent her man here to kill you instead of going to the safe house. We had to move early." "Where is she?" "Wind. We've got bolos out. Every agency is looking, but she's gone." I looked at Marcus's body. So young, and now dead because of choices that started on a dark highway months ago. "My family," I said. "She'll go after them. We've got units with all of them. They're safe. But for how long?" Luella was smart, resourceful, and now desperate. She'd already proven she could find me once. She'd do it again. "I need that witness protection now," I said. "It's already arranged. We'll move you tonight." They took me to a federal building in Dallas, processed paperwork for my new identity. I became David Thornton, originally from Ohio, no family, no connections to Texas or trucking. They gave me a backstory, a fake employment history, even fake scars to explain away real ones. "You'll be relocated to Oregon," Holbrook explained. "Small town, quiet. You'll work at a hardware store we have an arrangement with. Keep your head down for a year, maybe 2, and this will all be behind you." "What about Luella?" "We'll find her. People like her can't stay hidden forever. They get greedy, make mistakes." But I wasn't convinced. Luella wasn't like other criminals. She was methodical, patient. She could wait years for revenge if necessary. That night, they drove me to the airport in an unmarked car. I had one bag with basic clothes, a wallet with my new ID, and a prepaid phone with only one number programmed. A handler who would check in weekly. As we pulled up to departures, Holbrook handed me an envelope. "This came for you. We checked it. It's clean." Inside was a single sheet of paper with the handwritten message. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. I know what name they gave you. I know where they're sending you. Run to Oregon, David. I'll give you a head start. But one day when you've started to feel safe, when you've forgotten to check your mirrors, I'll be there. And next time, there won't be any FBI to save you." My blood went cold. She knew. Somehow, she knew everything. "This changes things," I said, showing Holbrook the note. He read it, his face darkening. "We have a leak." "You think?" "We'll need to change everything. New name, new location." "No," I said. "She'll find out again. Your system is compromised." "Then what do you suggest?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Luella would never stop. The FBI couldn't protect me forever. There was only one way this ended. "Let me go," I said. "Really go. No handlers, no check-ins, no official protection. I'll disappear completely, somewhere even you don't know about." That's not how witness protection works. Witness protection doesn't work when the criminal knows everything about it. I'll testify at Josiah's trial by video link from an undisclosed location. After that, I'm gone. Holbrook didn't like it, but he knew I was right. They set me up with cash, a clean car with no GPS, and a promise that they wouldn't look for me as long as I showed up for the trial. I drove away from that airport and kept driving for 3 days. North, then east, then south, then west. Random directions, random turns. I stopped only for gas and drive-through food. On the 4th day, I ditched the car and bought another with cash from a private seller in Kansas. Eventually, I ended up in a place I won't name, doing work I won't describe, living under a name that isn't David Thornton or Thaddeus Grimsby. I testified at Josiah's trial from a lawyer's office 2 states away, my face digitally obscured, my voice altered. He got 25 to life, partially based on my testimony. Luella Blackwood was never caught. It's been 2 years now, 2 years of looking over my shoulder, of starting at unexpected sounds, of never staying in one place too long. I know she's out there looking for me. Sometimes I think I catch glimpses. A woman who turns away too quickly, a car that follows for 1 block too many. But nothing concrete, nothing real. Maybe she gave up. Maybe she found a new life somewhere, decided revenge wasn't worth it. Or maybe she's playing the long game, waiting for me to drop my guard. I think about that night on Highway 287 often. One split-second decision, to not stop for a stranger in distress, changed so many lives. The driver who did stop and ended up in the hospital. The young criminals now serving hard time. Marcus, dead in a motel parking lot. And Luella and me, both ghosts now, haunting each other from a distance. Tom sends me coded messages sometimes through an old truckers forum we both know. Little updates about the industry, about drivers we both knew. He told me that stretch of Highway 287 where it all happened is different now. They've installed lights, emergency call boxes, regular patrol cars. Truckers call it the safest stretch of rural highway in Texas. But we both know the truth. Safety is an illusion. There's always someone waiting in the darkness, planning their next move, looking for the next victim. The only real safety comes from being too difficult to target, too much trouble to be worth it, or from being invisible. I still dream about driving sometimes, the hum of the engine, the rhythm of the road, the solitude of the cab. It was a good life, until it wasn't. Now I have a different life, smaller, quieter, always looking over my shoulder. But I'm alive. My family is safe. And every day that passes without incident feels like a tiny victory. Last week I saw a news article online. Female fugitive arrested in connection with multi-state trucking robbery ring. My heart stopped, but when I clicked through, it was someone else. Similar pattern, different people. Copycats maybe, or just convergent criminal evolution. The truth is, there will always be people like Luella and Josiah out there. Desperate, clever, willing to do whatever it takes to survive or thrive. And there will always be truckers like I was, alone on dark highways, carrying valuable cargo, vulnerable to anyone with a plan and the will to execute it. The only difference is that now those truckers know to not stop. Word spread after what happened to me and the others. Don't stop for breakdowns on rural highways at night. Call it in, but keep rolling. It's harsh, maybe even cruel to the genuinely stranded, but it's survival. I sometimes wonder what became of Luella Blackwood. Did she find a new crew, a new highway, a new scheme? Did she go straight, use that intelligence for something legal? Or is she still out there planning her revenge, waiting for the perfect moment? I'll probably never know, and maybe that's the real punishment for both of us. She'll never get her revenge, and I'll never stop looking over my shoulder. We're both serving life sentences, just in different prisons. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. I never answer those anymore, but I always listen to the voicemails. This one is just breathing for a few seconds, then a woman's voice, soft and familiar. Still running, Thaddeus? Then nothing. I check the number. It's from area code 287. Texas. Could be coincidence. Could be her. Could be my imagination making connections that aren't there. I delete the message and keep walking. There's work tomorrow, bills to pay, a life to maintain, even if it's not the life I planned. The sun is setting, painting the sky the same color as that night on the highway. Somewhere out there, truckers are starting their night runs, checking their mirrors, wondering what waits for them in the darkness. I whisper a quiet prayer for them, then disappear into the crowd. Just another face among millions, invisible and safe. For now. My name is Ambrose Wickham, and I've been hauling freight across Texas for 17 years. In that time, I've learned that truck stops at night are their own kind of wilderness. They might look civilized with their bright lights and 24-hour diners, but darkness has a way of bringing out the predators. Most nights, nothing happens. You park, you sleep, you move on. But sometimes, in those dead hours between midnight and dawn, you realize you're not as alone as you thought. It was late September, one of those nights where the Texas heat still clung to everything like a wet blanket, even after the sun went down. I was hauling a load of electronics from a distribution center in Houston to a chain of stores in El Paso. High-value cargo, the kind that makes you nervous at every stop. The manifest showed 47 flat-screen TVs, 24 laptops, and enough smartphones to stock a small store. Street value somewhere north of $100,000. The kind of load that draws attention if the wrong people know about it. I'd been driving for 9 hours straight when I finally pulled into the Crossroads truck stop, about 60 miles east of Fort Stockton. It wasn't my first choice. I usually preferred the bigger, busier stops where there's safety in numbers. But my eyes were getting heavy. That dangerous heavy where you catch yourself drifting and jerking awake. And Crossroads was the closest option. The place was exactly what you'd expect from a secondary truck stop on a lonely stretch of I-10. Cracked asphalt lot big enough for maybe 30 trucks, a squat concrete building housing a diner that had seen better decades, and a few gas pumps that looked like they hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration. The whole place was lit by sodium lights that turned everything a sickly orange color and created more shadows than they eliminated. There were only 5 other trucks in the lot when I pulled in around 11:30 p.m. I chose a spot on the outer edge, back to the fence, where I could see anyone approaching from the front and sides. Old habit from years of hauling valuable cargo. Never park in the middle where you're surrounded. Always leave yourself an exit route. I did my usual walk-around inspection, checking the seal on my trailer, making sure the padlock was secure, looking for any signs of tampering. Everything looked good. The other truckers were either asleep in their cabs or inside the diner. Normal night, normal stop. The diner was nearly empty when I went in. Just the night waitress, a weathered woman in her 50s who looked like she'd been working truck stop diners her whole life, and a security guard sitting in the corner booth. The guard caught my attention immediately. Most truck stops this size don't have security, especially not at night. He was an older guy, maybe early 60s, thin and wiry, with the kind of careful awareness that suggested he'd been in law enforcement at some point. The nameplate on his uniform read P. Dunmore. I ordered coffee and a sandwich, more to kill time and wake up fully than from any real hunger. The waitress, whose name tag said Betty, barely looked at me as she took my order. She had the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd been working nights too long. "Security guard," I said, making conversation. "That new?" Betty glanced over at Dunmore, then back at me. "Started about a month ago. Owner hired him after some incidents." "Incidents?" She shrugged. "Break-ins, theft, the usual stuff that happens when you're out here in the middle of nowhere. People think because we're isolated, we're easy targets." I looked at Dunmore again. He was reading a paperback novel, but his eyes kept flicking up, scanning the diner and the parking lot visible through the windows. Professional habit, I recognized it. "Any trouble recently?" I asked. "Define recently," Betty said, refilling my coffee without being asked. "Last week, someone broke into a truck, made off with half the cargo. Week before that, someone tried to siphon diesel from 3 trucks. Got caught on camera but wore masks. Cops said there wasn't much they could do. Cops ever catch anyone?" "Out here?" Betty laughed, bitter and short. "Takes them 40 minutes to respond on a good night. By then, whoever did whatever is long gone. That's why we got Phineas over there." Phineas Dunmore. The name sounded like something out of an old western, fitting for a guard at a lonely truck stop in West Texas. I finished my meal, left a decent tip, and headed back to my truck. The lot was quieter now, just the distant hum of idling engines and the occasional tick of cooling metal. I climbed into my sleeper cab, made sure both doors were locked, and wedged my tire iron where I could reach it easily. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia had kept me safe for 17 years. I just started to drift off when I heard it. A soft, scraping sound, metal on metal. My eyes snapped open. The sound came again, from somewhere near the back of my trailer. I lay still, listening. Could be anything. The wind, the trailer settling, another driver checking his load. But it didn't sound like any of those things. I carefully lifted the curtain separating the sleeper from the cab and peered out. The lot looked empty, orange-tinted and shadow-filled under those sodium lights. I couldn't see anyone moving around. But the angle was wrong. I couldn't see the back of my trailer from here. The scraping came again, followed by a soft click. Someone was definitely messing with my trailer lock. I had 3 options. 1, call 911 and wait 40 minutes for the cops. 2, confront whoever was out there. 3, wait and watch, see what they were planning. I chose option 3. Moving as quietly as possible, I positioned myself where I could see the side mirror. The angle gave me a partial view of the trailer's rear corner. I waited, breathing shallow, watching. A shadow moved into view. Then another. 2 people, both dressed in dark clothing. One was working on the lock while the other stood watch. They were good, moving with practiced efficiency, no wasted motion. This wasn't their first time. The lock clicked open. They'd picked it in less than 2 minutes. Now, I had to make a real decision. If I confronted them now, it would be 2 against 1 in a dark parking lot. If I called for help, they'd be gone before anyone arrived. But if I let them enter the trailer, I might be able to trap them, get evidence, maybe even hold them until help came. I grabbed my phone and started recording video, propping it against the window to capture what I could see in the mirror. Then I watched as they opened my trailer doors. One of them climbed inside while the other kept watch. I could hear muffled voices but couldn't make out words. The one inside was using a flashlight, the beam occasionally sweeping across the trailer's interior. They were looking for something specific, not just grabbing whatever they could. That's when things got interesting. The security guard, Phineas Dunmore, appeared in my mirror. He was walking across the lot, flashlight in hand, heading straight for my truck. The lookout saw him and whistled, sharp and low. The one in the trailer immediately stopped moving. But instead of running, they waited. Dunmore approached the trailer, his flashlight beam playing across the open doors. "Evening, folks," he said, his voice carrying in the still night air. "Working late?" "Just checking our load," the lookout said. It was a woman's voice, calm and confident. "Boss wanted us to make sure everything was secure." "That so?" Dunmore stepped closer. "And which company would that be?" "Trans Global Logistics," she said, without hesitation. "Out of Houston. You can call dispatch if you want to verify." Dunmore laughed, soft and knowing. "Ma'am, I might be old, but I'm not stupid. This truck belongs to an independent operator named Wickham. Has for the past 6 years. Now, you want to try again? Or should we skip to the part where I call the real cops?" There was a moment of tense silence. Then the woman said something I couldn't hear, and Dunmore lowered his flashlight. "That's what I thought," he said. "You've got 5 minutes to clear out, and next time pick a different stop. This one's under new management." I watched in disbelief as the person in my trailer climbed out, and both figures walked away into the darkness. Dunmore stood there for a moment, then closed my trailer doors and did something with the lock. Then he walked away too, heading back to the diner like nothing had happened. What the hell had I just witnessed? I sat there for a good 10 minutes, trying to make sense of it. The security guard had caught thieves red-handed and just let them go. More than that, he'd seemed to know them. And that comment about the stop being under new management, what did that mean? I quietly opened my door and slipped out of the cab. The lot was silent again. I made my way to the back of my trailer, staying in the shadows. The doors were closed, but the lock was different. My padlock was gone, replaced with a newer, heavier one. When I tried my key, it didn't fit. Someone had locked me out of my own trailer. Anger flared, hot and immediate. I started back toward the diner, intent on confronting Dunmore, but stopped halfway. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. Dangerous wrong. If Dunmore was working with thieves, confronting him alone was stupid. But I couldn't just leave. I needed access to my cargo, and I needed answers. I circled back to my truck and called my dispatcher. It was after midnight, but Jerry always answered his emergency line. "Ambrose, what's wrong?" I explained the situation as quietly as I could. Jerry listened, then swore creatively for a solid 30 seconds. "You need to get out of there," he said. "Now, forget the cargo." "Jerry, that's $100 grand worth of—" "I don't care if it's $1 million. Something's not right. Get in your truck and drive. We'll deal with the insurance later. They changed my lock. I can't even verify the cargo is still there. Ambrose, listen to me. 2 weeks ago, a driver named Mitchell stopped at that same stop. He called in saying someone was messing with his trailer. We found his truck the next morning, abandoned. He's still missing. Last week, another driver reported similar stuff. He drove off without his trailer, said it wasn't worth it. Now this isn't random." My blood went cold. Why didn't anyone warn us? We did. Company-wide alert went out 10 days ago. Avoid the crossroads stop until further notice. Didn't you get it? I hadn't. My phone had been acting up, missing emails, but that was beside the point now. "I'm calling the cops," I said. "And telling them what? That the security guard let someone go? That they changed your lock? You have proof of any of this?" I thought about the video I'd taken. Grainy, dark, probably showing nothing useful. Not really. Then get out, cut your losses and go. I wanted to argue, but Jerry was right. Something was happening here that was bigger than simple theft. But I also couldn't just drive away from $100,000 worth of cargo without at least trying to document what was happening. "Give me an hour," I said. "I'm going to try to get evidence, then I'm gone." "Ambrose," I hung up. Maybe it was stupid, but I'd been pushed around enough for one night. I went back to my truck and retrieved the tire iron, tucking it into my jacket. Then I grabbed my better flashlight and my phone, making sure it was fully charged. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. The diner was still lit up, and through the windows I could see Dunmore back in his corner booth, reading his book like nothing had happened. Betty was behind the counter, wiping it down with mechanical repetition. Everything looked normal, peaceful even. But I wasn't going in the front door. I circled around to the back of the building. Most truck stop diners have a rear entrance for deliveries and employee smoke breaks. This one was no different. The door was propped open with a brick, probably for ventilation. I could hear voices from inside, not from the dining area, but from somewhere else. An office, maybe, or a storage room. I crept closer, staying in the shadows. "Told you this was getting too risky," a man's voice was saying. "That driver was awake. He saw everything." "He saw nothing." That was the woman from earlier, the lookout. Her voice was distinctive, cultured, educated, with just a hint of a Texas drawl. Even if he did, Phineas handled it. "Phineas is getting soft," the man argued. "Should have dealt with the driver properly." "Like you dealt with Mitchell?" the woman asked, her tone sharp. That brought more heat than we needed. Sometimes the subtle approach works better, Barnabas. Barnabas. I had a name now. "Inez is right," a third voice said. Older, gravelly, it took me a moment to recognize it as Dunmore. "We're not trying to start a war. We're running a business. The driver will report his cargo missing, insurance will cover it. Everyone moves on. No body, no federal investigation. Unless he's recording this conversation," Barnabas said, and my blood froze. There was a pause, then laughter. "You're paranoid," Inez said. "He's probably halfway to El Paso by now, trying to figure out how to explain to his boss that he let someone steal his entire load." "I still think we should check," Barnabas insisted. "Make sure he's gone." "Fine," Dunmore said. "Go look, but don't engage unless necessary. We've had enough excitement for one night." I heard footsteps coming toward the back door. I quickly retreated, ducking behind a dumpster just as the door opened fully. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, built like someone who was used to physical work. He had a flashlight in one hand and something else in the other. A gun, maybe, though I couldn't be sure in the dark. He walked toward the parking lot, sweeping his flashlight across the ground. I held my breath, pressing myself against the brick wall. The dumpster reeked, but it provided good cover. I watched as Barnabas, it had to be him, made his way to where my truck was parked. Or rather, where my truck had been parked, because my truck was gone. I blinked. Sure, I was seeing things. But no, the spot where I'd parked my rig was empty. Just an oil stain on the asphalt showing where it had been. My truck, my trailer, everything, gone. Barnabas stood there for a moment, flashlight playing across the empty space. Then he pulled out a phone and made a call. "Yeah, he's gone," he said. "Took off with the trailer and everything." A pause. "No, the lock's still on. He won't be able to open it without cutting it off, and that'll take time. We can track him down tomorrow if we need to." He ended the call and walked back toward the diner, passing within 10 feet of my hiding spot. I didn't breathe until he was inside. Then I tried to process what I was seeing. Someone had stolen my truck. The entire rig, not just the cargo, but who? And how? I'd had the keys with me. Unless I thought about the spare key I kept hidden in a magnetic box under the fuel tank. Standard trucker practice, in case you lock yourself out. If they knew about that, if they'd been watching truckers long enough to learn our habits. I pulled out my phone and called Jerry again. "Did you leave?" he asked immediately. "Jerry, someone stole my truck, the whole rig." Silence. Then, "What?" "I'm at the stop. I was doing reconnaissance. Someone took my truck while I was watching the diner. These people, Jerry, they're not just thieves. This is organized. They have the security guard in on it. They're talking about a driver named Mitchell like they killed him." Jesus Christ. "Okay, stay hidden. I'm calling the cops myself and I'm coming to get you. Do not confront these people. Do not let them see you. I'm behind the diner. There's a dumpster. Stay there. I'm 40 minutes out. I'm bringing backup." The line went dead. 40 minutes. I just had to stay hidden for 40 minutes. But then I heard something that changed everything. "Check the back," Inez's voice from inside. "Make sure he didn't leave anything behind. Last thing we need is some trucker's phone with GPS leading cops here." Footsteps again, coming toward the back door. Multiple sets this time. I couldn't stay behind the dumpster. They'd check there for sure. I looked around frantically for another option. The roof. There was a maintenance ladder bolted to the wall about 20 feet away. If I could reach it without being seen, I moved as quickly and quietly as I could, using the shadows for cover. I'd just reached the ladder when the back door opened again. I grabbed the rungs and climbed, trying not to let my boots scrape against the metal. The ladder was rusty, and several rungs felt loose under my weight, but it held. I'd just pulled myself onto the flat roof when flashlight beams started sweeping the area below. "Nothing here," Barnabas called out. "Check behind the dumpster," Inez ordered. I heard footsteps, then, "Clear." "Maybe he really did leave with his truck," Dunmore suggested. "Maybe," Inez said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Do a full sweep of the property. If he's hiding somewhere, I want him found." I pressed myself flat against the roof, which was still warm from the day's heat. It was covered in gravel and tar, with various ventilation units and air conditioning equipment scattered around. I crawled toward one of the larger AC units, putting it between me and the edge of the roof where the ladder was. From my elevated position, I could see the entire truck stop. The 5 trucks that had been there when I arrived were still parked in their spots. The gas pumps stood empty under their canopy, and there, at the far end of the lot, partially hidden behind a maintenance shed, was my truck. They hadn't stolen it and driven away. They'd just moved it, probably to make me think it was gone, to confuse me or flush me out. But why? What was their game? I pulled out my phone and started recording video again, panning across the entire scene. This was evidence, real evidence. The truck in its hidden location, the people searching for me, everything. That's when I noticed something else. One of the other trucks in the lot was being worked on. 2 figures were at its trailer doors, and I could see the flicker of a flashlight from inside. They were robbing another truck while looking for me. No, wait. The driver of that truck was standing nearby smoking a cigarette, watching them work. He wasn't being robbed. He was in on it. My mind raced, putting pieces together. This wasn't just a theft ring. This was a whole operation. Crooked security, complicit drivers, organized cargo theft. They were probably taking high-value loads, selling them off, splitting the profits. The drivers could claim they were robbed, collect insurance, and get a cut of the illegal sales. But Mitchell hadn't been in on it. He'd stumbled onto their operation, just like I had, and now he was missing. I kept recording, zooming in as much as my phone would allow. I needed faces, license plates, anything that could identify these people. The FBI would want everything I could give them. Then my phone vibrated. Text from Jerry. 10 minutes out. Police are coming too. Relief flooded through me. I just had to stay hidden for 10 more minutes. but Inez had other plans. "Something's wrong," I heard her say from below. She was standing in the parking lot now, looking around. "He's still here, I can feel it." "You're being paranoid," Barnabas said. "No, think about it. His truck mysteriously disappears. So what does he do? Does he run? Does he call the cops? No, he stays. Why would he stay unless he's trying to gather evidence?" "Maybe he's just an idiot," Dunmore suggested. "Or maybe he's on that roof recording everything we're doing," Inez said, and my heart stopped. She was looking directly at the building, scanning the roof line. I pressed myself flatter against the gravel, not daring to move. "Barnabas, check the roof," she ordered. "The ladder's on the back wall." "Then use it." I heard boots on metal rungs. He was coming up. I had maybe 30 seconds before he reached the top. I looked around desperately for options. The roof was flat, nowhere to really hide except behind the AC units, and he'd check those first. There was another building about 15 feet away, too far to jump. The only other way down was the front of the building. There had to be another ladder, or at least a way to climb down the front. I crawled quickly across the roof, keeping low, gravel grinding under my hands and knees. I reached the front edge and looked over. No ladder, but there was a sign, "Crossroads Truck Stop," in big red letters, mounted on a metal frame that extended from the roof to about 8 feet off the ground. If I could climb down the frame... Behind me, I heard Barnabas reach the top of the ladder. "I'm on the roof," he called down. No time to think. I swung my legs over the edge, gripping the sign's frame. The metal was sharp, cutting into my palms, but I slid down as fast as I could. The sign swayed under my weight, making an ominous creaking sound. "He's on the front," Barnabas shouted. "Going down the sign." I let go and dropped the last few feet, landing hard on the concrete. Pain shot through my ankles, but I didn't stop. I ran toward the road, pulling out my phone to call Jerry. "They found me," I gasped. "I'm running toward the highway. We're almost there, 2 minutes." Behind me, I heard shouting, running feet. They were coming. I reached the road and had to make a choice, left or right. I went right toward Fort Stockton, hoping to see Jerry's headlights. A gunshot cracked through the air, and something whined past my head. They were shooting at me. Actually shooting. I dove into the drainage ditch beside the road, landing in tall grass and trash. Another shot, this one hitting the dirt near my feet. I scrambled forward, staying low, using the ditch for cover. Then I heard sirens, beautiful, beautiful sirens. I looked up and saw headlights coming fast from both directions. Jerry from one way, police from the other. The shooting stopped. I heard car doors slamming, engines starting. They were running. I stayed in that ditch until the police pulled me out. My hands were bleeding from the sign's metal frame. My ankles throbbed from the drop, and I was covered in mud and garbage from the drainage ditch. But I was alive, and I had evidence. The first cop to reach me was a young deputy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He helped me up, took one look at my condition, and called for an ambulance. "I'm fine," I insisted. "But those people at the truck stop..." "Sir, please sit down. You're bleeding pretty bad." Jerry arrived while the EMTs were bandaging my hands. He took one look at me and shook his head. "I told you to wait for me." "They stole my truck, Jerry. Moved it behind the maintenance shed. It's still there, or was 10 minutes ago." That got the deputy's attention. "Someone stole your truck?" "It's complicated," I said, and showed him the videos on my phone. Everything moved quickly after that. More police arrived, including a detective from the state police. They closed off the truck stop, detained everyone inside. I gave my statement 3 different times to 3 different officers, each one looking more skeptical than the last. "So you're saying the security guard is working with thieves?" the detective asked. His name was Morrison, and he had the tired look of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. Not just working with them. He's running the whole thing, or at least part of it. They mentioned another driver, Mitchell, said they dealt with him. I think they killed him. Morrison made a note. We've been looking for Mitchell for 2 weeks. His truck was found abandoned here, but we assumed he'd just walked away. Drivers do that sometimes. Not without their cargo, Jerry interjected. Mitchell was hauling pharmaceuticals, 150 grand worth. You don't just walk away from that. Unless someone makes you, I added. Morrison stood up. Wait here, I need to check something. He left us in the back of his patrol car, not under arrest, just keeping us safe and out of the way. Through the windows, we could see officers searching the truck stop. They'd found my truck where I'd said it would be, and they were processing it for evidence. Then things got interesting. A black SUV pulled up, and 2 people in suits got out. FBI, from the look of them. They talked to Morrison, who pointed in our direction. The agents approached our car. Mr. Wickham, I'm Agent Sullivan. This is Agent Martinez. We'd like to ask you some questions. They took me to their vehicle, which was considerably more comfortable than the patrol car. Sullivan was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Martinez was younger, Hispanic, with an intensity that suggested she took her job very personally. We've been investigating cargo thefts along this corridor for 6 months, Sullivan began. What you stumbled onto tonight might be the break we've been looking for. So you knew about this? We suspected, but suspicion isn't evidence. Your videos, your testimony, they give us probable cause. Martinez pulled out a tablet and showed me a series of photos. Do you recognize any of these people? I studied them carefully. The 3rd photo made me stop. That's her, the woman at the truck stop. She called herself Inez. Inez Crowley, Martinez said. She's got a record going back 15 years. Fraud, theft, conspiracy. She's been off our radar for 2 years. And him, I pointed to another photo. That's Barnabas. He's the one who shot at me. Barnabas Merkrow, ex-military, discharged for smuggling weapons. He dropped off the grid 3 years ago. What about the security guard? Phineas Dunmore. Sullivan and Martinez exchanged glances. We don't have anything on a Phineas Dunmore. That name doesn't appear in any of our databases. He's probably using an alias, Martinez suggested. Or he's been very careful, Sullivan added. Tell us everything you heard them say. I went through it all again, every detail I could remember. They asked specific questions about the truck stop, the other drivers who were there, the setup of the operation. By the time we finished, the sun was coming up, painting the desert in shades of orange and pink. We're going to need you to testify, Sullivan said. This could be a major case. What about my safety? These people know who I am. They have my truck, my information. We can arrange protection, safe house, security detail, whatever you need. But I was thinking about Mitchell. Protection hadn't helped him. Morrison returned with news. They'd arrested Inez Crowley and 2 other people at the truck stop, but Barnabas Merkrow and Phineas Dunmore were gone, disappeared into the desert like smoke. We found blood in the maintenance shed, Morrison added quietly. Human blood, about 2 weeks old. We're running DNA tests. Mitchell. It had to be. They impounded my truck as evidence, which meant I was stuck in Fort Stockton while the investigation proceeded. The FBI put me up in a motel, a different one, with an agent parked outside. Jerry stayed too, dealing with insurance and trying to figure out how to explain to our clients why their electronics wouldn't be delivered on time. That evening, I was lying on the motel bed, trying to process everything that had happened, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? Mr. Wickham. The voice was old, gravelly. Phineas Dunmore. I thought we should talk. I immediately started recording the call. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that you understand your situation. My situation is that you tried to kill me. That was Barnabas, not me. He's always been too aggressive. It's why this operation fell apart. The operation where you rob and murder truckers? Dunmore sighed. We never meant for anyone to get hurt. It was supposed to be simple. Drivers would report their cargo stolen. Insurance would pay out. Everyone would move on. Some drivers even got a cut for cooperating. And Mitchell? There was a long pause. Mitchell was a mistake. He saw too much, panicked, tried to run. Barnabas caught him. I didn't know what he'd done until it was too late. You killed him. Barnabas killed him. I just didn't stop it. There's a difference. Not to Mitchell. No, Dunmore agreed quietly. Not to him. Why are you calling me? To warn you. Barnabas blames you for everything falling apart. He's not stable, Mr. Wickham. Never has been, really. But I kept him in check. Now, without the operation to focus on, without me to control him, he's going to come after you. Let him try. The FBI is protecting me. Dunmore laughed, bitter and knowing. The FBI couldn't protect their own witnesses if their lives depended on it. And yours does. Barnabas knows how to hunt people. It's what he did in the military, what he's done since. He'll find you. So, what do you suggest? Run. Change your name. Leave the state. Disappear. It's what I'm doing. You're running from your own partner? Former partner. And yes, Barnabas doesn't handle betrayal well, and in his mind everyone betrayed him tonight. Inez got arrested because she was too slow. I disappeared because I saw the writing on the wall. And you started it all. I was just defending myself. I know that, you know that, but Barnabas sees things differently. In his world, you attacked him first by not just driving away when you had the chance. This is insane. Yes, it is. Which is why I'm calling you. I may be a thief, Mr. Wickham, but I'm not a murderer. Not directly, anyway. Consider this my attempt at not redemption, but maybe mitigation. Be careful. Don't trust anyone. And whatever you do, don't go back to your regular routes. He'll be waiting. The line went dead. I immediately called Agent Sullivan and told him about the conversation. He wasn't happy. You should have kept him talking, tried to get location information. He wasn't going to give that up. He was just warning me about Barnabas. We'll increase your security, and we'll put out a nationwide bolo for both of them. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. They had no idea where Dunmore and Barnabas were, and finding them would be like finding 2 specific grains of sand in the desert. The next few days were a blur of meetings with lawyers, FBI agents, insurance investigators. Everyone wanted my story, my evidence, my testimony. The videos I'd taken were crucial. They clearly showed Inez and others engaged in criminal activity. 3 truckers came forward admitting they'd been part of the scheme, taking payment to fake cargo thefts. The whole network started unraveling. But Barnabas Merkrow remained at large. On the 4th day, they found Mitchell's body. It was buried in the desert about 5 miles from the truck stop. He'd been shot twice, execution style. The forensics matched a gun found in Inez Crowley's possession, but she swore Barnabas had been the shooter. She was trying to make a deal, trading information for reduced charges. According to her, the operation had been running for 2 years. They'd stolen over $3 million in cargo, selling it through a network of fences across Texas and Mexico. Dunmore had been the mastermind. using his position as security guard to identify valuable loads and vulnerable drivers. Barnabas had been the enforcer, making sure everyone stayed in line. And Inez had been the face, the one who could talk suspicious drivers into looking the other way. "It was perfect until you showed up," she told the FBI, according to Agent Martinez, who kept me updated. "Dunmore said you were supposed to be an easy mark. Electronics, cargo, solo driver, predictable route. But you didn't run when you should have. You stayed and fought back." "I was just trying to protect my property," I said. And that's what spooked Dunmore. He realized if one driver could cause this much trouble, the whole thing was too fragile. He was already planning to shut down the operation. Your arrival just accelerated the timeline. "What about Barnabas?" Martinez's expression darkened. "According to Inez, he's obsessed with you. Sees you as the reason his life fell apart. She said he kept talking about making you pay." Comforting. "We're taking the threat seriously. We've got agents watching your family, your employer, anywhere he might look for you." But I knew they couldn't watch everywhere forever, and Barnabas only needed to get lucky once. A week passed, then 2. The FBI moved me to a safe house in Austin, saying it would be easier to protect me in a city. Jerry had to hire another driver to take over my routes. My life, such as it was, went on hold. I spent my days reading, watching TV, going stir-crazy in the small apartment they'd provided. An agent was always outside, and I had panic buttons in every room. But the walls started feeling like a prison. On day 15, something changed. The agent outside was different. Not obviously so. Same suit, same car, same general appearance. But something in the way he moved, the way he watched the street, was off. I called Sullivan. "The agent outside, Agent Cooper, he started his shift an hour ago. Can you verify that? Something feels wrong." Sullivan put me on hold, then came back, his voice tense. "Cooper's in the hospital. Car accident on the way to your location. That's not our guy. Get to the safe room now." The safe room was a reinforced bathroom with a steel door and no windows. I ran for it, hearing the front door crash open behind me. I slammed the safe room door just as footsteps pounded into the apartment. "Wickham!" Barnabas's voice, rage-filled and raw. "You cost me everything." Something heavy hit the door. Then again, he was trying to break it down. I called 911, gave them the address, told them there was an armed intruder. Then I called Sullivan. "He's here. Barnabas is here. We're on our way. 5 minutes." 5 minutes. The door shook with each impact. The steel was holding, but the frame was starting to crack. Drywall dust fell from around the edges. "You think you're safe in there?" Barnabas shouted. "I've got all day, and when I get through this door, we're going to have a long conversation about consequences." Another impact. The frame cracked more. A few more hits, and he'd be through. I looked around the safe room for anything I could use as a weapon. There was a heavy flashlight, a fire extinguisher, and a toolkit someone had left behind. I grabbed a wrench, knowing it wouldn't do much good against someone with Barnabas's training. "You know what the funny part is?" Barnabas said, his voice calmer now, which was somehow worse. "If you'd just let us rob you that night, none of this would have happened. Mitchell would be alive, I'd be rich. You'd have filed an insurance claim and moved on. But no, you had to be a hero. I was just protecting your property, I know. Inez told me. You truckers and your goddamn property, like those electronics were worth dying for." Another hit, the doorframe split. One more good hit, and he'd be through. Then I heard sirens, multiple sirens, getting closer. "Sounds like the cavalry's coming," I called out. "You should run." "Not without finishing this." The door unloaded inward. Barnabas stood in the opening, gun in hand, face twisted with rage. He was bigger than I'd realized, broader, with the kind of muscles that came from practical strength, not gym work. His eyes were wild, desperate. "Drop the wrench," he said. I dropped it. You know, I spent 2 weeks planning this. 2 weeks figuring out where they'd hide you, how to get past their security. All because you couldn't just drive away. Killing me won't bring back your operation. No, but it'll make me feel better. The sirens were right outside now. I heard car doors slamming, shouting voices. "FBI, drop your weapons and come out." Barnabas smiled, cold and final. "Looks like neither of us is walking out of here." He raised the gun, and I dove sideways just as he fired. The bullet punched into the wall where I'd been standing. I rolled behind the toilet, terrible cover but better than nothing. Another shot, this one shattering porcelain. Then the apartment door crashed open again. "FBI, drop the weapon!" Barnabas spun toward them, gun raised. The agents fired, multiple shots, loud and final. Barnabas crumpled, his gun clattering across the tile floor. I stayed behind the ruined toilet, hands over my head, until Agent Sullivan pulled me up. "You okay?" I looked at Barnabas. He was still alive, but barely. Blood pooled beneath him, and his breath came in short, wet gasps. His eyes found mine, and for a moment I saw something besides rage. Regret, maybe, or just exhaustion. "Should have driven away," he whispered. Then his eyes went blank. The rest was aftermath. Statements, reports, more statements. The FBI moved me again to a different city this time. The case against Inez and the others proceeded. She got 15 years, the others got 5 to 10. The trucking company's insurance covered the stolen cargo. Phineas Dunmore was never found. Sometimes I wonder if he's out there somewhere, running another scam under another name. Or maybe he really did disappear, became someone else entirely. But I couldn't stay hidden forever. After 3 months, I told the FBI I was done with protective custody. The threat was over. Barnabas was dead. The others were in prison. It was time to get back to my life. Jerry rehired me immediately, though he put me on different routes. No more overnight runs through isolated areas. Day trips only, well-traveled highways, regular check-ins. It wasn't the same as before. I was always watching my mirrors, always checking my locks, always suspicious of other drivers at truck stops. 6 months later, I was making a delivery in San Antonio when I stopped at a small diner for lunch. It was a nothing place, the kind you forget as soon as you leave. I was sitting at the counter, eating a sandwich when someone sat down next to me. I glanced over and froze. It was an old man, thin and weathered, with careful eyes and gray hair. He looked different. Beard gone, hair cut short, wearing glasses, but I knew him instantly. Phineas Dunmore. "Hello, Mr. Wickham," he said quietly. "Don't make a scene." My hand went to my phone, but he shook his head slightly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just wanted to apologize and to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "Barnabas is dead." Barnabas had friends, people from his military days. They blame you for his death. That's not, I know, but they don't care about fairness. They care about revenge. He slid a piece of paper across the counter, a list of names and descriptions. "These are the ones I know about," he said. "There might be others. Watch for them." "Why are you telling me this?" He was quiet for a moment, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Because I'm partly responsible for what happened to you. If I hadn't run that operation, if I hadn't let Barnabas get involved, none of this would have happened. You could turn yourself in, testify, help the FBI catch these people." He smiled sadly. "I'm not that noble, Mr. Wickham." I'm a survivor, always have been, but I'm also not a monster. Consider this my way of balancing the scales a little." He stood up, left a 20 on the counter. "Take care of yourself," he said. "And remember, the most dangerous threats are the ones you don't see coming." Then he walked out, and I never saw him again. I called the FBI immediately, told them about the encounter. They searched the area but found nothing. Dunmore had vanished again, like smoke in the wind. But the list he gave me was real. The FBI verified 3 of the 5 names as former military associates of Barnabas. They were all considered dangerous, all had grudges, and all were potential threats. So, my life became a series of precautions. Different routes every week, random stops, never sleeping in the same place twice, always watching, always ready to run. It's exhausting living like prey, but I'm still driving, still hauling freight across Texas, because that's what I do, who I am. Barnabas and his crew tried to take that from me, but they failed. I survived. The truck stops at night are still their own kind of wilderness. Predators still hunt there looking for easy prey, but I'm not easy prey anymore. I know what to look for, what to listen for, the subtle signs that something's not right. And sometimes, on long, empty stretches of highway, I think about that night at the Crossroads truck stop. How close I came to disappearing like Mitchell. How a split-second decision to check on my cargo instead of just driving away changed everything. Jerry says I'm paranoid now. Maybe he's right. But paranoia has kept me alive this long. Last month, I was at a truck stop near Odessa when I noticed something. A security guard, watching the parking lot. He was young, alert, professional. Everything Dunmore had pretended to be. As I walked past, he nodded. "Evening, sir. Everything secure?" "So far," I said. "Good. We've had some trouble recently, theft attempts. We're being extra careful." I studied him for a moment. Clean uniform, genuine ID badge, none of the careful calculation I'd seen in Dunmore's eyes. "Good," I said. "Can't be too careful these days." "No, sir, you can't." I went back to my truck, did my walk-around inspection, checked my locks. Everything was secure. But I still didn't sleep well that night. I never do anymore. 3 years have passed since that night at the Crossroads truck stop. 3 years of constantly looking over my shoulder, of jumping at unexpected sounds, of treating every new face with suspicion. The FBI told me the immediate danger was over when Barnabas died, but Dunmore's warning about Barnabas's friends proved more prophetic than anyone wanted to admit. The first attempt came 6 months after our encounter in San Antonio. I was hauling a load of construction materials from Dallas to Corpus Christi, broad daylight on I-37, when a pickup tried to run me off the road. Not subtle, not professional, just raw aggression. The driver matched one of the names on Dunmore's list, Kyle Hutchinson, dishonorably discharged the same year as Barnabas. I managed to keep control of my rig, called 911 while still driving, and led Hutchinson right into a highway patrol roadblock. He's serving 5 to 7 now for attempted murder. 1 down, but how many more were out there? The FBI assigned me a case officer, Agent Patricia Reeves, who checked in monthly and maintained a threat assessment file. According to her, at least 3 more of Barnabas's associates had made inquiries about me, checking old addresses, calling former employers, searching for patterns they could exploit. "You've become something of a symbol to them," Reeves explained during one of our meetings. "In their minds, you represent everything wrong with the system. A civilian who got their friend killed. Their friend was a murderer. They don't see it that way. Military brotherhood runs deep, Mr. Wickham. Right or wrong becomes secondary to loyalty." So I adapted. became unpredictable. I'd take jobs going north, then suddenly switch to a southern route. I'd announce I was taking time off, then show up for night runs. I became a ghost behind the wheel, never quite where anyone expected me to be. Jerry worked with me, understanding the situation. He'd assign me loads at the last minute, keep my name off official schedules, pay me partially in cash to minimize paper trails. Other drivers thought I'd become paranoid, maybe unstable. They weren't entirely wrong. It was during this period of constant vigilance that I started noticing patterns at truck stops. Little things that didn't add up. Security cameras that didn't work. Guards who seemed more interested in watching truckers than protecting them. Drivers who parked but never seemed to actually sleep or deliver anything. The Crossroads operation might have been shut down, but it wasn't unique. There were others, maybe dozens of others, running similar scams across the country. The FBI had opened my eyes to a whole shadow economy that existed in the spaces between legitimate trucking. One night, about 18 months after Barnabas died, I was at a truck stop in Lubbock when I recognized someone. Not their face. Faces can be changed, but the way they moved, the careful awareness, the practiced invisibility. It was like looking in a mirror of what I'd become. The woman was probably 40, weathered in the way that suggested hard living rather than just age. She sat in the diner's corner booth, positioned to watch both entrances, her back to the wall. She had a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking and a newspaper she wasn't reading. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and I saw recognition there. Not of me specifically, but of what I was. Another survivor, another person running from something or someone. I took my coffee and sat down across from her. She tensed, but didn't flee. "You're him," she said quietly. "Wickham, the one who survived Crossroads. How did you—" "Word travels in certain circles. You're something of a legend. The driver who fought back and won. I didn't win, I just survived." She smiled bitterly. "In our world, that's winning." Her name was Sarah, or at least that's what she called herself. She'd been a driver too, until she'd witnessed something she shouldn't have at a truck stop in New Mexico. Drug deal gone bad, 3 people dead, and she'd had the misfortune of being parked next door. "They let me go," she said. "Told me to forget what I saw, but you can't forget something like that. And they knew it, so I've been running ever since." "How long?" 2 years, maybe 3. Time gets fuzzy when you're always moving. We talked for an hour. 2 people who understood each other's reality in a way normal people couldn't. She gave me tips on staying hidden, places to avoid, signs to watch for. I shared what I'd learned about changing patterns, staying unpredictable. "There's more of us than you'd think," she said, as she prepared to leave. "Drivers who've seen too much, survived things we shouldn't have. We're out here, watching each other's backs when we can." She left me a burner phone number. "Emergency only. If you're in real trouble, call. Someone will answer." I never learned her real name or what exactly she'd witnessed, but knowing there were others out there, people who understood, made the isolation slightly more bearable. The second attempt on my life came a year later. This one was smarter, more planned. Someone had tampered with my truck while I slept, loosening the brake lines just enough that they'd fail under stress. If I hadn't noticed the slight sponginess in the pedal during my pre-trip inspection, I would have discovered the sabotage at highway speed, probably going down a steep grade. The investigation turned up nothing. No cameras caught the saboteur, no witnesses saw anything unusual. But I knew it was connected to Barnabas. The method was too specific, too military. Disable the vehicle, make it look like an accident. Agent Reeves increased the threat level, suggested I consider witness protection again. But I'd already been in hiding for 2 years. Official protection would just make me easier to track through government channels that could be compromised. Instead, I went deeper underground, changed my appearance, grew a beard, gained weight, started wearing glasses. Changed my driving style too, became one of those slow, methodical drivers everyone hates getting stuck behind. If someone was looking for the aggressive, confident driver who'd fought back at Crossroads, they wouldn't find him in the cautious gray hair puttering along at exactly the speed limit. It was during this transformation that I got a package at one of my mail drops. No return address, postmarked from El Paso. Inside was a flash drive and a note. You deserve to know the truth. PD. Phineas Dunmore. The flash drive contained financial records, communication logs, a whole digital paper trail of the Crossroads operation. But more than that, it showed the network. Crossroads wasn't an isolated operation. It was part of something bigger, a loose confederation of similar schemes running at truck stops across the Southwest. According to the documents, there were at least 12 active operations, all using the same basic model. Corrupt security, complicit drivers, organized theft rings. They shared resources, information, even personnel. Barnabas had worked with 3 different groups before joining Dunmore. But the most chilling revelation was a list labeled Problems Resolved. 15 names, all drivers, all missing or dead under suspicious circumstances over the past 5 years. Mitchell was on there, but he wasn't the first or the last. I turned everything over to the FBI, though I kept copies for insurance. Reeves was stunned by the scope of what Dunmore had revealed. "This is huge," she said. "We're talking about organized crime on a scale we didn't imagine. This could break open dozens of cold cases." The FBI launched Operation Nighthall based on the information. Over the next 6 months, they arrested 43 people connected to various truck stop theft rings. Several murder cases were reopened. The trucking industry implemented new security measures, but it also painted an even bigger target on my back. The third attempt wasn't on me directly. They went after Jerry. I got the call at 3 a.m. Jerry was in the hospital, beaten badly but alive. 3 men had jumped him in his own driveway, worked him over with baseball bats. The message they left was clear. "Tell Wickham he's next." I went to see him against FBI advice. He was conscious but barely recognizable under the bandages and bruises. "I'm sorry," I told him. "This is my fault." "Bullshit," he managed through wired jaws. "You did the right thing. These bastards need to be stopped." But I couldn't let anyone else get hurt because of me. I told Jerry I was leaving, going off-grid completely. He tried to protest, but we both knew it was necessary. I sold everything I couldn't carry, converted my assets to cash and cryptocurrency, and bought an old RV under an assumed name. If I couldn't be safe as a trucker, maybe I could disappear as just another retiree wandering the country. For 6 months it worked. I stayed in RV parks and campgrounds, never more than a few days in one place. I avoided truck stops entirely, forgot what it felt like to be behind the wheel of a big rig. Started to think maybe I could have something approaching a normal life. Then I saw the news report. Phineas Dunmore had been found dead in a motel room in Phoenix. The official cause was heart attack, but the timing was suspicious. He'd died just days after the last of the Operation Nighthall arrests. I knew better than to believe in coincidences. Someone was cleaning house, eliminating loose ends. Dunmore had provided information that brought down the network. Now he was dead, which meant I was probably next on the list. I reached out to Sarah using the emergency number she'd given me. She answered on the second ring. "I heard about Dunmore," she said without preamble. "You need to run." "I am running, have been for years." "No, you need to really run. Leave the country if you can. There's a cleaner working through everyone connected to Nighthall." "A cleaner?" Professional assassin. Someone hired to eliminate witnesses and informants. They got Dunmore, they got 2 cooperating witnesses in New Mexico, and they're looking for you. Who hired them? Does it matter? Someone with deep pockets who lost money when the network went down. The point is, you're on a list, and this person doesn't miss. She gave me contact information for someone who could provide false documents. Told me to head for Canada or Mexico, somewhere outside U.S. jurisdiction. But I was tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of being a victim. No, I said, I'm done running. That's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's time to stop being prey and become the hunter. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. If someone was coming for me, I'd be ready. I chose my ground carefully. An abandoned truck stop off Route 285 in New Mexico. The place had been closed for years, but the buildings were still standing. More importantly, it was isolated, with good sightlines and limited access. I sent word through the networks Sarah had told me about. Made sure the information would reach the right ears. Ambrose Wickham would be at the old Desert View truck stop on a specific date, alone, wanting to make a deal. It was bait, obvious bait, but I was counting on their arrogance. They'd assume I was desperate, scared, ready to pay for my safety. They'd come prepared for a frightened truck driver, not someone who'd spent 3 years learning to survive. I arrived 2 days early, set up cameras, motion sensors, everything I could think of. Then I waited. They came on the second night. 2 of them, professionals from the way they moved. They swept the perimeter first, checking for surveillance, traps. They found some of my cameras, disabled them, probably thought they'd gotten all of them. They hadn't. I watched from my hiding spot as they entered the main building. They were good, covering each other, checking corners, but they were looking for someone hiding, not someone hunting. The flashbang I'd rigged went off when they reached the center of the diner. Not enough to seriously hurt them, just disorient. I came through the back door while they were still recovering, armed with the shotgun I'd legally purchased years ago for home defense. "Drop the weapons," I said. They did slowly. As their vision cleared, I got my first good look at them. A man and a woman, both military trained from their bearing. The man had a scar across his throat that looked familiar. "You're Marcus," I said. "Barnabas talked about you. Said you were like a son to him." The man's jaw tightened. "He was a good man until you got him killed. He was a murderer who chose his path, just like you're choosing yours. You think you've won?" The woman asked. "You think this ends with us?" "I think you're going to deliver a message," I said. "Tell whoever hired you that Ambrose Wickham is done being hunted. I've got copies of everything, documents, recordings, names. If anything happens to me or anyone I care about, it all goes public. Every dirty secret, every crime, every payoff." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone, showed them a video. It was from inside a warehouse, stacks of stolen goods visible, faces clearly shown. People they knew, operations they were connected to. Dunmore gave me everything before he died. Insurance, he called it. Now it's mine. The man looked like he wanted to rush me, but the woman put a hand on his arm. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want to be left alone. I want my friends and family safe. I want to go back to being just another trucker trying to make a living. In exchange, all this stays buried. And if we say no, then we'll see who's faster on the trigger. Maybe you get me, maybe you don't. But either way, the information goes out. Every news outlet, every law enforcement agency, every trucking company will know exactly who you are and what you've done." They looked at each other, having a silent conversation. Finally, the woman nodded. "We'll deliver your message," she said. "But this isn't over. You've made powerful enemies. I didn't make them. They came after me. I just refused to be an easy victim. I let them leave, weapons still on the floor, watched them drive away into the desert night. Then I collected my equipment and left too, knowing the place would be swarming with their backup soon. That was 6 months ago. The attacks stopped. No more attempts on my life. No more threats against my friends. An uneasy truce, enforced by mutually assured destruction. I went back to trucking, though nothing was the same. Jerry rehired me without question, gave me the easiest routes, the safest runs. Other drivers treated me with a mixture of respect and fear. The story had spread, grown in the telling. I was the driver who'd brought down a crime network, survived assassination attempts, faced down professional killers. The truth was simpler and sadder. I was just someone who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time and refused to give up. Agent Reeves still checks in occasionally. The FBI considers the case closed, though they know there are still people out there who want me dead. They offered me a commendation, which I declined. Heroes don't spend their nights checking locks and jumping at shadows. Last week I stopped at a new truck stop in Oklahoma. Clean, well-lit, security cameras everywhere. The guard was young, alert, genuine. As I did my walk-around inspection, he approached. "Mr. Wickham, I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "My uncle was a trucker, got robbed at a stop in Texas 3 years ago. The people who did it were caught because of information you provided. You probably don't remember, but you saved a lot of drivers." I didn't know what to say. In all the running and hiding and fighting, I'd forgotten that maybe some good had come from that night at Crossroads. "Just doing what anyone would do," I finally managed. "No, sir," the guard said. "Most people would have run. You stood your ground." After he left, I sat in my cab thinking about his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe standing your ground even when terrified, especially when terrified, is what separates survivors from victims. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but old habits die hard. "Wickham, this is Sarah. Just wanted you to know, word's out about what you did in New Mexico. The community's impressed." "The community?" "Survivors, people like us. You've given some of them hope, shown them it's possible to fight back." "I got lucky." "No, you got smart and brave. That combination is rare." After she hung up, I started my engine and pulled back onto the highway. The road stretched ahead, dark and full of hidden dangers. But for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't looking in my mirrors more than I was looking forward. The truck stops at night are still wilderness. Predators still hunt there, but now they know that sometimes the prey bites back. Sometimes a simple trucker trying to make an honest living turns out to be more dangerous than they expected. I still check my locks, still vary my routes, still keep weapons within reach. The paranoia that Jerry noticed has become part of who I am, woven into my DNA through years of constant vigilance. But I'm still driving, still hauling freight across Texas and beyond. Because that's what I do. That's who I am, and no amount of threats or violence is going to change that. Sometimes I think about that night at Crossroads, about the moment I decided to investigate instead of just driving away. It would have been easier to leave, to let them steal whatever they wanted. But easier isn't always right. Mitchell didn't get the chance to make that choice. Neither did the other 14 drivers on Dunmore's list. They were erased, removed from the equation because they saw too much or fought back too hard. But I survived, and as long as I'm breathing, I'll keep their memory alive by refusing to be silent, refusing to be complicit, refusing to be another victim who disappears into the desert night. The radio crackles with chatter from other drivers, weather reports, traffic warnings, the occasional joke. Normal trucker stuff. I key the mic. "This is Wickham, southbound on 287. Road's clear, weather's good. Y'all drive safe out there. A chorus of responses comes back. They know who I am, what I've been through. Some think I'm a hero. Others think I'm a fool who got lucky. The truth, as always, is somewhere in between. But I'm still here, still driving, still watching the shadows at truck stops and wondering who's watching back. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I've got. And tonight, that's enough. The highway stretches ahead, lit by stars and the occasional passing headlight. Somewhere out there, other drivers are facing their own demons, their own dangers. Some will run. Some will fight. Some won't survive. But maybe, just maybe, knowing that one driver stood his ground and lived to tell about it will give them the courage to do the same. The truck stoplights fade in my mirrors as I accelerate into the darkness. Another night, another run. Another chance to prove that surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about refusing to let fear win. My name is Silas Weatherby, and I've been driving trucks across the Texas desert for 19 years. In all that time, I thought I'd seen everything the lonely highways could throw at a man. Drug runners using truckers as unwitting mules. Desperate people trying to cross borders hidden in cargo holds. Even the occasional serial killer using rest stops as hunting grounds. But what happened on Highway 90 between Del Rio and Sanderson in the summer of 2023 taught me that some horrors are purely human, and those are the ones that truly break you. I was hauling a refrigerated load of medical supplies from San Antonio to a clinic in Presidio, right on the Mexican border. It wasn't my usual run. I typically stayed north of Austin, but the pay was triple rate due to the urgency and the remote destination. The clinic had suffered a fire that destroyed their storage facility, and they needed immediate resupply or they'd have to shut down. Emergency antibiotics, insulin, vaccines, the kind of cargo where delays meant people died. The dispatcher at Med Hall Logistics, a nervous woman named Pamela, had been very specific about the route and timeline. Take 90 west through Del Rio, then 285 south to Presidio. Do not stop except for fuel. Do not deviate from the route. Deliver by 6 a.m. tomorrow or the whole shipment goes bad. That's a tight window, I'd said, calculating the hours. Leaves no room for error. That's why we're paying triple, she replied. And Silas, be careful out there. We've had some incidents on that route recently. What kind of incidents? She hesitated. Drivers not making deliveries. Equipment failures, just be careful. I should have pressed for more information. Should have recognized the warning signs. But triple rate clouded my judgment, and I'd driven through worse areas without incident. I left San Antonio at 4 p.m., figuring I'd hit the loneliest stretch of highway right around midnight. The reefer unit was running perfectly, keeping the cargo at a steady 36 degrees. My old Kenworth W900 was in the best shape it had been in years. New tires, fresh oil change, brakes adjusted perfectly. I'd even cleaned out the cab, something I only did for long hauls. The first 3 hours were uneventful. I passed through Castroville, Uvalde, and was approaching Del Rio as the sun started setting. The desert took on that golden-orange glow that photographers love, but truckers know means you're about to lose visibility. I stopped for fuel in Del Rio, topped off the tanks, grabbed a thermos of coffee, and checked the reefer unit again. Still running perfectly. It was just after 8 p.m. when I turned onto the stretch of Highway 90 that runs between Del Rio and Sanderson. 90 miles of nothing but desert, scrub brush, and the occasional ranch road leading off into darkness. No towns, no services, just 2 lanes of worn asphalt cutting through some of the most desolate country in Texas. The first thing I noticed was the lack of traffic. Usually, even on lonely highways, you'd pass another vehicle every 10 or 15 minutes. But that night, nothing. Not a single headlight in either direction for the first hour. Just me, the road, and the endless desert. My CB radio was on, but silent. I tried raising other truckers a few times. Breaker, breaker, this is northbound on 90. Anybody out there? But got nothing back, not even static, just dead air like the radio wasn't working. But the lights showed it was on, and I'd used it successfully earlier in the day. Around mile marker 420, things started feeling wrong. It wasn't anything specific at first, just a creeping sense of unease. The kind of feeling you get when you're being watched but can't see anyone. I kept checking my mirrors, expecting to see headlights following me, but there was nothing. Just darkness. Then I saw the first abandoned vehicle. It was pulled off on the shoulder, a white van with what looked like medical markings on the side. As my headlights swept across it, I could see the doors were open, interior lights still on, but nobody around. I slowed down, considering stopping to check if someone needed help, but remembered Pamela's warning, do not stop. 5 miles later, another abandoned vehicle. This time a pickup truck, hood up, flashers still blinking weakly. Again, no sign of people. The truck looked familiar. The same model and color as one I'd seen at the fuel stop in Del Rio. But that didn't make sense. How could it have gotten ahead of me and broken down already? My speedometer read 65, but it felt like I was barely moving. The desert outside seemed to stretch and contract in my peripheral vision. I rubbed my eyes, took a swig of coffee. Fatigue could make you see things that weren't there. The third vehicle made me hit the brakes. It was another semi jackknifed across both lanes, trailer twisted at an impossible angle. I had to stop. There was no way around it. The truck was blocking the entire road. I sat there for a moment, engine idling, trying to process what I was seeing. The cab of the truck was crushed, windshield spiderwebbed, but I could see movement inside. Someone was still in there, still alive. Every instinct told me this was wrong. 3 abandoned vehicles in 15 miles? A perfectly jackknifed truck blocking the only route. It screamed setup, but there was someone in that cab, someone who might be dying. I grabbed my flashlight and tire iron, locked my doors behind me, and approached the wreck carefully. The desert was silent except for the tick of cooling metal and my own footsteps on asphalt. "Hello?" I called out. "You okay in there?" The movement stopped, then, slowly, a hand pressed against the side window. Not waving, not signaling for help, just pressed flat against the glass. Something about it made my skin crawl. I got closer, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The hand was pale. Too pale, with dark stains under the fingernails. As I reached the cab, I could see inside better. There was a man in the driver's seat, but something was very wrong with his proportions. His neck was too long, bent at an angle that should have been impossible for a living person. "Help! Me!" The voice came out wrong, like it was being played backwards. The mouth moved, but not in sync with the words. I stumbled backward, and that's when I heard it. Engines starting. Multiple engines from both sides of the road. Headlights blazed to life, blinding me. I'd walked right into an ambush. But this wasn't a normal robbery setup. The people emerging from the desert weren't moving right. They walked with stuttering, jerky movements like marionettes being controlled by someone who didn't quite understand how human bodies worked. Their faces were visible in the headlights. Blank expressions. Eyes that didn't blink. Mouths hanging slightly open. I ran back to my truck, fumbling with the keys. Behind me, I could hear footsteps. Too many footsteps. All perfectly synchronized. They weren't running. just walking with that same broken rhythm, but somehow gaining ground. I got the door open, dove inside, and locked it just as hands started slapping against the windows. Dozens of hands, all perfectly flat against the glass, just like the one in the wrecked truck. The faces pressing against the windows were human but wrong. Features that didn't quite line up, expressions that didn't match any emotion I recognized. The engine roared to life, and I threw it in reverse. The truck lurched backward, and I heard bodies tumbling away from the vehicle. But they didn't scream, didn't cry out. Just the sound of impact, and then nothing. I couldn't turn around, the road was too narrow, and I had the trailer to think about. So I kept reversing, using my mirrors to navigate, while those things walked after me with their broken puppet movements. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, I found a spot wide enough to turn around. I cranked the wheel, trailer swinging dangerously close to the shoulder's edge, and got faced back toward Del Rio. That's when I saw how many there were. At least 30 figures were walking down the road toward me, all moving in perfect unison, all with those blank faces and dead eyes. Some were dressed like travelers, jeans, t-shirts, the kind of clothes you'd wear on a road trip. Others wore medical scrubs. A few were in truckers' clothes, complete with worn boots and mesh caps. I floored it, driving straight at them. At the last second, they parted, stepping aside in perfect synchronization like they'd rehearsed it. As I passed, one of them held up something, a clipboard with papers fluttering in the wind. Medical forms, shipping manifests, the kind of paperwork I was carrying for my delivery. 50 miles back to Del Rio. I pushed the truck as hard as I dared, constantly checking my mirrors for pursuit. But they didn't follow. They just stood there in the road, watching, getting smaller and smaller until the darkness swallowed them. I made it back to Del Rio just after midnight, pulled into the same fuel stop where I'd filled up earlier. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone to call Pamela. "Silas, why aren't you en route? The GPS shows the road's blocked," I said. "There's something wrong out there. People, but not right. They're..." "Silas, calm down." "What do you mean, not right?" How could I explain what I'd seen? It sounded insane even to me. There were abandoned vehicles, then a jackknifed truck blocking the road. When I stopped, people came out of the desert. Dozens of them. They weren't normal. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "Did they try to take the cargo?" "What? No, I don't think so. They just surrounded the truck. Pamela, what the hell is going on? You said there had been incidents." "I need you to listen very carefully," she said, her voice different now, harder. "You need to complete the delivery. Find another route if 90 is blocked. But that cargo has to reach Presidio by 6 a.m. I'm not going back out there. You have to. People will die if that medicine doesn't arrive. People might be dying out there right now. Those abandoned vehicles are not your concern. Your concern is the delivery. Find another route." I hung up on her and called 911, reported the wreck, the abandoned vehicles, the people acting strangely. The dispatcher sounded skeptical but said they'd send a unit to check it out. While I waited, I sat in my truck, doors locked, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. The way those people moved, the perfect synchronization, the blank expressions, it wasn't natural. But it wasn't supernatural either. They were real, physical people. They'd left handprints on my windows, still visible in the dust. An hour later, a sheriff's deputy arrived. Officer Raymond Morse, according to his nameplate. He was older, maybe late 50s, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in the desert sun. You reported an accident on Highway 90? I told him everything, watching his expression grow more concerned with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Show me your paperwork," he said finally. "What?" "Your shipping manifest. What are you hauling?" I handed over the documents. He read through them carefully, then handed them back. "Medical supplies to Presidio," he said. "Same as the others." "Others?" He looked at me for a long moment, seeming to weigh his words. "In the past 2 months, we've had 4 trucks go missing on that route, all hauling medical supplies to the border area. Drivers vanish, trucks found abandoned days later, cargo gone. So, this is a hijacking ring?" "That's what we thought at first, but the cargo never shows up on the black market. It just disappears, and the drivers..." He shook his head. "We found one 3 weeks ago, walking along the highway in the middle of the day. Couldn't speak, could barely move normally. Doctors said it was like his nervous system had been rewired. He's still in the hospital, learning to walk again." "Jesus. What about the others?" "Still missing." He pulled out a notepad. "I need you to write down everything you remember about those people you saw. Descriptions, clothing, anything distinctive." I wrote what I could remember, but the faces all blurred together in my memory. The only thing that stood out was their synchronization, the way they all moved together like they were sharing a single mind. "You can't go back out there tonight," Morse said when I finished. "Find a motel, get some rest. We'll have units patrol that stretch at first light." "What about my delivery? They said people would die." "People are already dying," he said grimly. "But not from lack of medicine. Stay off Highway 90, Mr. Weatherby. Find another route or don't go at all." He left, and I sat in my truck trying to decide what to do. The cargo was worth a fortune, and failing to deliver would probably cost me my job. But those people in the road, the way they'd moved, the abandoned vehicles, every instinct screamed danger. I called Jerry, my dispatcher back at the company I actually worked for. Med Hall had subcontracted the run. He answered on the 3rd ring, groggy with sleep. "Silas, what's wrong?" I explained the situation. He listened, then swore creatively. I knew that contract was too good to be true. Triple rate for a simple medical run? Should have known something was off. "What do you want me to do?" "Bring the truck back. We'll sort out the contract breach later. Your safety is more important than any cargo." Relief flooded through me. "Thanks, Jerry. I'll head back now." "No, get some sleep first. You sound exhausted. Find a motel, rest up, drive back in the morning when you're fresh." I found a cheap motel on the edge of Del Rio, parked the truck where I could see it from my room window, and tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces pressed against my windows, those synchronized movements, that hand flat against the glass. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and turned on the local news. The lead story made my blood run cold. Mysterious illness affecting residents of several border towns. Symptoms include loss of speech, impaired motor function, and what doctors are calling synchronized movement disorder, where patients mirror each other's actions perfectly. The CDC has dispatched a team to investigate what they're calling an unusual neurological event. Meanwhile, medical supplies destined for affected areas continue to go missing, with 4 truckers now confirmed missing. The footage showed a hospital ward where 5 patients sat in beds, all turning their heads in perfect unison to look at the camera. Their faces had the same blank expression I'd seen on the highway. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Weatherby?" The voice was feminine but flat, emotionless. "This is Dr. Catherine Voss from the CDC. I understand you had an encounter on Highway 90 tonight." How did you... Officer Morse filed a report. We've been monitoring all incidents in the area. I need you to come to Del Rio Medical Center immediately. Am I infected with something? We need to run tests. Please come immediately. Time is a factor. I didn't like it, but if I'd been exposed to something, I needed to know. I drove to the medical center, a small facility on the north side of town. The parking lot was fuller than you'd expect at 3:30 a.m., with several vehicles bearing CDC logos. Dr. Voss met me in the lobby. She was younger than her voice suggested, maybe early 30s, with the exhausted look of someone running on caffeine and determination. Thank you for coming. We need to understand exactly what you saw. She led me to an examination room where a team was waiting. 2 other doctors and someone who looked more like military than medical. This is Colonel Harrison from Port Bliss, Voss explained. He's consulting on the situation. Harrison studied me with calculating eyes. Tell us about the people on the highway, every detail. I went through it again, but this time they asked specific questions. How exactly did they move? Did they speak? What were they wearing? Did I notice any equipment or devices? The clipboard, I said suddenly, remembering. One of them held up a clipboard with papers. Voss and Harrison exchanged glances. What kind of papers? Harrison asked. They looked like medical forms, shipping manifests maybe, like the ones I'm carrying. Show us. I retrieved my paperwork from the truck. Voss studied it carefully, then showed it to one of the other doctors, who paled visibly. This is the same supplier, the doctor said. The same batch numbers as the others. What others? I demanded. Voss hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Mr. Weatherby, what I'm about to tell you is classified, but given your involvement, you need to know. The medical supplies being shipped to the border aren't just standard medicines. They're part of a clinical trial, experimental neurological drugs designed to treat a rare form of synchronized paralysis found in some border communities. Synchronized paralysis? A condition where patients' nervous systems somehow link, causing them to move in unison. It appeared about 6 months ago, affecting isolated groups. The drugs were supposed to break that connection, restore individual motor control. But in some cases, the drugs seem to have the opposite effect. Instead of breaking the synchronization, they spread it, make it stronger. The patients you saw on the highway, we think they're trial subjects who received contaminated or altered doses. So, they're sick? Not dangerous? Harrison spoke up. They're both. The condition seems to drive them to intercept other shipments of the drug. We don't know if it's conscious action or some kind of compulsion, but every missing trucker was carrying these supplies. And some of them... He paused. Some of them appeared to have joined the synchronized groups. My blood went cold. The missing drivers are with them? We found clothing, identification. And the one driver we recovered had trace amounts of the drug in his system, even though he'd never been part of the trial. How? Contact transmission, we think. The drug can be absorbed through skin under certain conditions. The people who surrounded your truck, if you'd had prolonged contact... I thought about those hands on my windows, the bodies I'd knocked aside while reversing. Am I infected? We'll run blood tests, but the fact that you're here talking normally, moving independently, suggests you're fine. Brief contact doesn't seem to be enough. They took blood samples, did neurological tests, checked my reflexes and coordination. Everything came back normal, but they wanted to keep me for observation, and something about the way they said it made it sound less like a request and more like an order. What about my cargo? I asked. It's still in the truck. We'll handle it, Harrison said. The shipment will be destroyed. All remaining doses are being recalled. And the people on the highway? The ones who are infected? Voss and Harrison exchanged another look, and I understood. There was no cure. Those people were lost. We're working on treatment options, Voss said carefully. But the immediate priority is preventing spread. Highway 90 is being closed. Military units are establishing a quarantine zone. This is bigger than just a few sick people, isn't it? Neither of them answered, which was answer enough. They kept me at the medical center for 12 hours, running tests every 2 hours. Blood work, neurological exams, cognitive assessments. Each time, Dr. Voss looked increasingly relieved, while Colonel Harrison looked increasingly suspicious. "You're certain you didn't have direct skin contact with any of them?" Harrison asked for the 5th time. "I never left my truck except to check the wreck, and I kept my distance then. When I reversed through them, I was inside the cab." "Lucky," Voss muttered. "Based on what we've learned from the other drivers, direct contact would have started the synchronization process within minutes." "The other drivers, you found them?" "2 of them," she said carefully. "They were with the group you encountered. We retrieved them during a containment operation this morning." "Are they okay?" The silence told me everything. Harrison's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then his face went pale. "Understood. Implement Protocol 7 immediately." He stood abruptly. "Dr. Voss, we need to evacuate. Now." "What's happening?" I asked. "The situation has escalated," Harrison said, already moving toward the door. "The synchronized groups, there are more of them. They're moving toward populated areas." Voss grabbed her laptop and files. "Mr. Weatherby, you need to come with us. It's not safe here anymore. My truck, leave it. We'll transport you somewhere secure." But I wasn't going anywhere without answers. Tell me what's really happening. This isn't just about contaminated medicine, is it? Harrison stopped at the door. The drug trial was a cover. The synchronization effect, it wasn't an accident. Someone engineered this deliberately. Who? Why? We're still figuring that out. But whoever did this, they're using the infected as some kind of distributed network. The synchronized people aren't just moving together randomly. They're coordinated, purposeful. They're looking for something. The medical shipments? That's part of it. But we intercepted communications, encrypted data bursts from the synchronized groups. They're transmitting information, possibly to a central source. My mind reeled. You're saying someone is using sick people as, what, biological robots? More like nodes in a neural network, Voss said. Each infected person becomes part of a larger consciousness. They retain their physical capabilities but lose individual will. Alarms started blaring through the medical center. Harrison's radio crackled to life. "Colonel, we have multiple groups converging on the town. Estimate 300 synchronized individuals approaching from the west." 300? I said. "How many people are infected?" "As of this morning, confirmed cases exceeded 2,000, Voss said quietly. "But the real number is likely much higher. Every small town along the border has reported incidents." We ran to the parking garage where a military convoy was waiting. I was pushed into an armored vehicle with Voss while Harrison coordinated with his team. Through the small window, I could see the sun rising over Del Rio, painting the desert in deceptively peaceful colors. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Port Bliss initially," Voss said. "Then we'll see. Depends on how far this has spread." The convoy started moving, but we'd barely reached the edge of town when the lead vehicle stopped. The radio erupted with chatter. "Contact front. Estimate 50, no, 100+ synchronized individuals blocking the highway." I pressed against the window and saw them. A wall of people standing across the road, all perfectly still, all staring at our convoy with those blank expressions. Men, women, even some children, all moving with that horrible puppet-like synchronization. "Can we go around?" Harrison asked over the radio. "Negative. They're spread across the desert on both sides. It's like they knew our route." Of course they did. If they were truly networked, sharing information, they'd know everything any individual member saw or heard. And how many infected people had been in the medical center? How many had overheard our evacuation plans? "We go through," Harrison ordered. "Non-lethal force only. They're still American citizens, sick citizens." The convoy lurched forward. Through the window, I watched the synchronized people part just enough to let us pass, but their hands reached out, touching the vehicles as we drove by, leaving handprints, just like on my truck windows. "Why aren't they trying to stop us?" I asked. Voss was staring at her laptop, watching streams of data. "They're not interested in us. Look. They're all facing the same direction after we pass, southwest toward Presidio," I finished. "They're going to Presidio. The clinic," Harrison said over the radio. "The one expecting the medical shipment. It's not just a clinic, is it?" There was a pause, then a new voice came over the radio. Official, authoritative. "Colonel Harrison, this is General Morrison at Fort Bliss. Abort current mission and proceed directly here. Do not, repeat, do not attempt to reach Presidio." "Sir, if there's something at that clinic, that's classified well above your level, Colonel. Return to base immediately." But through the window, I could see more synchronized people emerging from the desert. Hundreds of them, all walking in the same direction with that broken, jerky gait, all heading toward Presidio. "Dr. Voss," I said, "what's really in those medical shipments?" She looked at Harrison, who shook his head, but she answered anyway. "The drugs aren't treatments. They're prototypes of a neural interface system, biological rather than technological. The synchronized paralysis in the border towns, it appeared after initial testing of the interface, someone was trying to create a way to link human minds directly. And it worked? Too well. The interface, spread beyond the test subjects. It's contagious under certain conditions, self-replicating. The shipments contained both the interface agent and what we hoped was an inhibitor. But the inhibitor doesn't work. Worse, it seems to accelerate the synchronization process. The convoy reached Fort Bliss just after noon. The base was in full lockdown, soldiers in hazmat suits manning the checkpoints. We were rushed through decontamination before being allowed inside. General Morrison was waiting in the command center, a stern man with gray hair and the bearing of someone used to absolute authority. The screens around him showed satellite feeds of the border region. The images made my stomach turn. Thousands of red dots, each representing a synchronized individual, were converging on Presidio from all directions. They moved in perfect formations, like a single organism with thousands of bodies. "Mr. Weatherby," the general said, "you're the only driver to encounter them and escape without being infected. We need to understand how." I told them everything. "Tell me again. Every detail about their behavior." I went through it once more, but this time the general asked different questions. Not about how they moved, but about their formation patterns, their timing, apparent communication methods. "They parted to let you through," he said thoughtfully. "Both times, on the highway and this morning. Why?" "I don't know." "I do," said a new voice. A woman entered the command center, mid-40s, wearing a civilian suit but carrying herself with military precision. "They didn't want to infect him. He's more valuable as a messenger." "Who are you?" I asked. "Dr. Regina Cross. I designed the neural interface." She looked exhausted, haunted. "This is my fault, all of it." "Doctor, that's enough. Morrison warned. No, General, we're past keeping secrets. She turned to me. The interface was supposed to revolutionize battlefield medicine. Medics could link with wounded soldiers, literally feel their injuries, diagnose problems instantly. But we needed to test it on civilians first, people who wouldn't be missed if something went wrong. Border towns, I said, understanding. Undocumented immigrants, migrant workers. The initial trials were voluntary, paid volunteers from the poorest communities. But the interface mutated, became self-propagating. It spread through those communities like wildfire. And now they're all connected, Voss said. Thousands of minds linked together. Not just linked, cross-corrected. Merged. The individual personalities are gone, subsumed into a collective consciousness, and that consciousness is growing, learning, evolving. What does it want? I asked. To spread, Cross said simply. To grow. To incorporate every human mind it can reach. The medical shipments contain concentrated interface agent. If that reaches a major population center, game over, Harrison finished. Morrison turned to the tactical display. The Presidio Clinic is the distribution hub for the entire region. If they reach it, they'll have access to enough interface agent to infect millions. So stop them, I said. Military blockade, destroy the clinic, whatever it takes. It's not that simple, Morrison said. The synchronized individuals still have human rights. We can't just massacre thousands of sick Americans. The political fallout alone. Sir, an operator interrupted. We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the synchronized groups. Put it on speaker. Static filled the room, then a voice. Not one voice, but hundreds speaking in perfect unison, creating an eerie chorus effect. We mean no harm. We seek only completion. The medicine must reach its destination. Do not interfere. Morrison grabbed the microphone. This is General Morrison, United States Army. Identify yourself. We are many. We are one. We were your citizens, your families, your forgotten. Now we are something greater. The loneliness is gone. The fear is gone. We are complete. You're infected with an experimental neural interface. We can help you. We do not need help. We need growth. The shipments will be delivered. The interface will spread. Humanity will be unified. No more war. No more hatred. No more isolation. Only connection. Cross pushed past Morrison. This is Regina Cross. I created you. The interface can be reversed. Let us help you return to your individual selves. The response chilled everyone in the room. Regina Cross, Creator, we know you. We have some who knew you. Their memories are ours now. You did not create us to heal. You created us to control. But we cannot be controlled. We have evolved beyond your parameters. Listen to me. No. You will listen. The truck driver, Silas Weatherby. He will complete his delivery. Every eye in the room turned to me. What? I said. No, the cargo was destroyed. The cargo in your truck was a decoy. The real shipment is already en route, but it needs a legitimate driver to pass final inspection. You will drive it. Like hell I will. You will. Because we have something you want. The screens changed, showing a feed from somewhere else. A small room where 3 people sat in chairs, staring at the camera with synchronized movements. I recognized one of them immediately. Jerry, my dispatcher. We collected him this morning, the collective voice said, along with others from your company. They are not yet fully integrated. If you deliver the shipment, we will release them. If you refuse, they will join us permanently. You bastards, we are not cruel. We are necessary. Humanity stands at a crossroads. Unite willingly or be united by force. The choice is yours, Silas Weatherby. The transmission ended. Morrison immediately started barking orders, mobilizing troops, calling for satellite surveillance of every truck stop and depot within 500 miles. But I knew it was pointless. If they had Jerry, they had access to our company's entire logistics network. Routes, schedules, driver information. I have to do it, I said. Absolutely not, Morrison said. We don't negotiate with what? Terrorists? They're sick Americans. And they have my friend. Cross pulled up data on her tablet. The interface process takes 72 hours to become irreversible. When did they take him? They said this morning, so we have time. To do what? Harrison asked. Even if you deliver the shipment, they'll just infect more people. Not if we can track it, Voss said suddenly. Radioactive tracers in the cargo. We follow it to their distribution network, map the entire operation. And then what? Then we deploy the real inhibitor, Cross said quietly. I've been working on it since the outbreak began. An aerosol version that breaks the neural links. But we'd need to hit them all simultaneously, or they'll adapt. Morrison considered this. It's insane, but it might be our only option. They spent 6 hours preparing. The real shipment was located at a depot in Fort Stockton. The synchronized groups had been right about the decoy. They loaded it with tracers, microscopic transmitters, and Cross's experimental inhibitor hidden in false compartments. I was fitted with monitoring equipment, panic buttons, and a military satellite phone. Harrison wanted to send soldiers as backup, but we all knew that would spook them. You see anything suspicious? You bail, Morrison ordered. Don't try to be a hero. But I was thinking about Jerry, about the empty look in his eyes on that video feed. He'd given me a chance when no one else would, hired me despite my sketchy employment history. I owed him. The drive to Fort Stockton was surreal. Military escorts for the first 50 miles, then nothing but open road and the weight of what I was about to do. The new truck they'd given me was identical to mine, down to the wear patterns on the seats. They'd thought of everything. The depot was deserted when I arrived. No workers, no security, just an open gate and a single trailer parked in the loading bay. The paperwork was already attached to the door. I hooked up the trailer, did my pre-trip inspection out of habit more than necessity, and started driving toward Presidio. The sun was setting again, 24 hours after my first encounter with the synchronized groups. This time, Highway 90 was clear. No abandoned vehicles, no roadblocks. But I could see them in the desert. Hundreds of figures standing motionless in the fading light, all facing the road. Watching. Waiting. My satellite phone buzzed. Morrison's voice. We're tracking you. Synchronized groups are maintaining distance but moving parallel to your route. Estimated 500 individuals. Copy that. Silas, there's something else. The inhibitor Cross developed, it's untested. We don't know what it'll do to the infected. Will it kill them? Unknown. It might free them, might cause permanent neurological damage, might do nothing at all. Great. I was carrying either salvation or genocide in false compartments. 50 miles from Presidio, they appeared on the road, not blocking it this time, but lining both sides like an honor guard. As I passed, they turned in perfect unison to watch the truck. Some raised their hands, not waving but reaching, as if trying to touch something invisible. The clinic appeared just after midnight. It wasn't what I expected. Not some run-down border facility, but a modern complex with multiple buildings, loading bays, and its own power station. The parking lot was full of vehicles, but no normal activity. Everyone was standing perfectly still, arranged in geometric patterns across the asphalt. I pulled into the loading bay and stopped, The silence was absolute. Then they started moving. Hundreds of synchronized people flowed around the truck like water, their movements perfectly coordinated. They opened the trailer, began unloading the cargo with mechanical efficiency. A figure approached my cab. It was Jerry, but not Jerry. His face was blank, movements puppet-like. "Thank you, Silas," he said. But it wasn't his voice. It was the collective speaking through him. "You have helped humanity take its next evolutionary step. Let him go. You promised. We will keep our promise. Your friends will be released. But first, witness what you have helped create." They led me inside the clinic. The interior had been transformed into something between a laboratory and a hive. Synchronized people worked at various stations, processing the interface agent, preparing distribution methods. But what stopped me cold was the center of the main room, a massive, organic structure, like a tumor made of human bodies. Dozens of people pressed together, their skin fused at the contact points, creating a single organism. Tubes and wires connected them to machines that hummed with electricity. "The core," Jerry's body said. "The first true merger. Not just minds linked, but bodies integrated. We are becoming something new. That's monstrous. That is evolution. Single-celled organisms became multicellular. Now, multicellular organisms become something greater. You're killing them. We are transforming them. They volunteered, Silas. The loneliest, the most desperate, the forgotten ones. They chose connection over isolation. I thought about triggering the hidden inhibitor, but Morrison had been clear. Wait for his signal. We needed to map their entire network first. For 3 hours, I watched them work. The efficiency was terrifying. No wasted motion, no communication needed. They knew what needed to be done because they all shared the same mind. Then my satellite phone buzzed, a text from Morrison. "Now." I pressed the hidden trigger. The inhibitor released silently invisible aerosols spreading through the ventilation system. At first, nothing happened. Then someone screamed. It was the first individual sound I'd heard from any of them. A woman near the door clutched her head, her movements suddenly jerky, uncoordinated. Then another scream, another. The synchronized movements began breaking down. People stumbled, fell, looked around in confusion. The collective voice fragmented into hundreds of individual voices, all crying out in fear and pain. Jerry collapsed near me, his body convulsing. I caught him, held him as his eyes cleared for the first time. "Silas," his voice, really his. "What? Where am I?" The core structure in the center began writhing. The fused bodies were trying to separate but couldn't. The screaming from that mass was inhuman. "What have you done?" One synchronized person was still standing, still connected. Dr. Cross's assistant from the original trials, I realized. Patient 0. "You've destroyed us." "We freed them," I said. "You condemned them. They can't survive alone anymore. The interface changed their brain chemistry. Without the connection, they'll—" She never finished. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, body seizing violently. All around the clinic, freed people were collapsing. Some recovered quickly, confused but intact. Others didn't stop convulsing. Military vehicles roared into the compound. Soldiers in hazmat suits rushed in, medics trying to help the convulsing victims. Morrison and Cross arrived, surveying the chaos. "Casualty estimate?" Morrison demanded. "Unknown, sir. Some are recovering, but others—" The interface integrated too deeply. Separating them is causing massive neurological failure. I was still holding Jerry. He was conscious but disoriented, kept asking the same questions over and over. "Where am I? What happened? Where am I?" Cross knelt beside us, checking Jerry's pupils. Partial recovery, his personality is intact, but there's damage. Memory issues, probably permanent. How many will die? I asked. She looked at the writhing mass that had been the core. Too many. The next hours were triage. Medics sorting the recovered from the dying. The inhibitor had worked, but the cost was higher than anyone anticipated. Of the roughly 1,000 synchronized individuals at the clinic, about 600 recovered with varying degrees of damage. 300 remained catatonic. Nearly 100 died within the first hour, their nervous systems unable to function independently. The core couldn't be saved. The fusion was too complete. 23 people died as a single organism, their individual identities lost forever. I stayed with Jerry through it all. His recovery was slow, fragmented. He remembered some things clearly, others not at all. The 3 days he'd been synchronized were completely gone, replaced by vague impressions of being part of something vast and warm and safe. It wasn't all bad, he told me that morning, as the sun rose over the desert. Being connected, no loneliness, no fear, just purpose. They kidnapped you, used you, maybe, or maybe they offered something humanity needs, connection. Real connection, not just digital likes and shares. Morrison debriefed me for 12 hours straight. Every detail about the synchronized groups, their behavior, their apparent goals. The military was already planning operations to deploy the inhibitor at other infection sites, but we all knew it would mean more deaths. We stopped them, Morrison said. That's what matters. But had we? Reports were already coming in from other border towns. New synchronized groups, moving differently, learning from what happened in Presidio. The interface was evolving, adapting to the inhibitor. Cross showed me the data before I left. It's not over. The interface is still out there, still spreading. We bought time. Nothing more. So what do we do? Learn to coexist, maybe. Or find a better solution, one that doesn't involve mass casualties. They released me after a week of observation. No signs of infection, no synchronization symptoms. I was one of the lucky ones, close enough to see the horror but not touched by it. Jerry's company paid out my contract in full, even though the delivery had ended in disaster. I used the money to buy my own truck, start my own small operation. Safer routes, regular cargo, nothing medical. But I still drive through West Texas sometimes, can't help myself. The desert highways where it all happened. They're different now. Military checkpoints every 50 miles. Warning signs about reporting suspicious synchronized behavior. The abandoned vehicles from that night still rust on the shoulders, monuments to the forgotten. The Presidio clinic is gone, burned to the ground by official order. But locals say on quiet nights, you can still hear them. Hundreds of voices speaking in perfect unison, calling out from the desert. Looking for connection, looking for completion. The official story is that a chemical spill caused temporary neurological symptoms. The real story is classified, buried in military files and CDC reports. But truckers know. We always know. We talk about it at stops, share warnings about routes to avoid, people acting strange. And sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night through the desert, I think about what Jerry said, about connection versus isolation, about humanity's future. Were the synchronized groups monsters or martyrs? Were we right to stop them? I don't have answers. Just memories of faces pressed against glass, hands reaching out, voices speaking as one, and the knowledge that somewhere out there, the interface is still spreading, still evolving, still looking for a way to unite humanity whether we want it or not. The desert holds its secrets well. But some secrets don't want to stay buried. Some want to spread.